My entitled brother and his wife literally allowed their kids to run around my house and destroy our property, as he has this gentle parenting approach where he doesn't have any consequences for his kids, and instead just lets them do whatever they want whenever they want. But after dealing with this for so long, I finally put my foot down and told them to get out of my house, resulting in a fallout that I honestly wasn't really expecting, because right now there's a lot of tension and I don't know what to do. Here's how it all started. Okay, to start things off, my younger brother and his wife and their 2 kids came to stay with us for about a week. We don't live close to each other, so this was supposed to be a nice visit, quality time and all that good stuff, and I was actually really looking forward to it. His kids are ages 4 and 6, and apparently my brother and his wife have this parenting approach where they don't do any kind of punishment or consequences, like none at all. If the kid does something wrong, they just ask them how they're feeling and what emotions led to that choice. That's it. That's the whole thing. Now, I thought it was kind of weird when he explained it, but I kept my mouth shut because it's not my house and it's not my kids whatsoever. But then I saw it in action and I was honestly stunned. On the very first day, his daughter got into my home office and spilled juice all over my desk. It got on papers, my keyboard, literally everywhere. And nobody said anything to her. His son then went into our backyard and ripped out a bunch of herbs my wife had been growing for months. Just yanked them straight out of the ground for fun. Then he threw his toy truck at our sliding glass door, and this was hard enough to chip the glass. But the worst part is that both kids kept messing with our cat, pulling her tail, chasing her around, cornering her, etc. Our cat is old and very chill and never scratched them, but she was clearly stressed out and hiding under furniture. Now, every single time I looked at my brother expecting him to step in, but nothing. He did literally nothing the entire time. His wife would crouch down and go, "Hey buddy, what feelings are you having right now that made you want to do that?" And the kid would then run off and do something else destructive 5 minutes later. Well, by day 2, I simply couldn't take it anymore. I told the kids firmly to stop messing with the cat and to stay out of my office. When I did this, my brother actually got in my face about it and said that it's not my place to parent his children. I told him, well, somebody has to because clearly nobody else is doing it. And my God, it got heated really fast. I told him that his kids are destroying my home and he's just standing there asking about feelings while my wife's garden is torn up and my office smells like apple juice. He then said that I was being dramatic and disrespectful of their parenting choices. So I straight up told him this whole no consequence thing is going to blow up in his face someday and his kids are going to have a miserable time in the real world if they never learn that actions have consequences. And when I said that, he just completely shut down after that. Eventually though, my wife and I told them that they needed to leave. They need to either find a hotel or drive home, but they couldn't stay here anymore. He then called me controlling and said I was choosing furniture over family. So seriously, am I the jerk for kicking my brother and his family out of my house, especially after his kids were destroying my house? Because right now I'm still pissed off about this. Oh my gosh, I hate parents like this, dude. I'm sure you know the kind of person I'm talking about, but my God, this drives me nuts, dude. It's this whole gentle parenting crap that never works, because guess what? The kids never listen and they just continue mouthing off and doing terrible things. Holy crap, at that point, the kids are the ones that run the house and nobody else. And it's even worse when the parents are just in denial and they're like, "Don't you parent my children? How dare you? How dare you talk to them like that? I can't believe you." When it's like, dude, my cat is being bothered left and right. You destroyed my garden and your kid could have destroyed a lot more in my office. If one of those kids destroyed my electronics and my expensive computer and my microphone or anything like that, I would lose my mind and be like, "You're never coming back and you're gonna pay for all this." Because holy crap, this is unacceptable. Kids that age need structure. They need consequences for their actions. Because I've seen what kids like this can grow up to be and they are absolute basket cases. They never adapt to society. They're absolutely miserable people to be around and they expect you to bend over hand and foot just to take care of them. They're literally incapable of taking care of themselves. So no, you are not the jerk for kicking this guy and his family out. He is out of his mind if he thinks he's being a good father in this situation. And the fact that he's not willing to own up to his mistake is absolutely appalling in my opinion. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend seems genuinely disgusted by my hobbies and my interests, and now I'm starting to feel ashamed of myself for even being interested in this stuff. And at this point, I don't know what to do about it. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my girlfriend and I are in our early 20s, and we've been dating for about a year now. I love her a lot, and I genuinely care about her deeply. I see her as my partner and my best friend, and I've always imagined a future with her. We share similar goals, values, and aspirations, and most of the time, our relationship feels supportive and loving. So that is why this situation has been weighing weighing on me more and more because it feels at odds with how close I thought we were. For reference, I am kind of a nerd. Not extreme, but my interests are things like superheroes, anime, manga, games, and Dungeons & Dragons. These are things that I have liked for a long time, and they're a big part of how I relax and enjoy myself. Meanwhile, my girlfriend is pretty much the opposite. She is more into celebrity culture, going out, fashion, luxury, or trending things. And trust me, I don't have a problem with that at all, and I've always tried to be supportive. The problem is that whenever I bring up my interest, she reacts very negatively. She will scoff and say ew, or just genuinely look annoyed. At first, I thought she was just teasing me, so I tried playing along with it as a joke, but she actually gets upset when I do that. She has told me that she finds these interests unattractive and associates them with guys who have bad mindsets, like misogynists or incels. And I've got to be honest, that really hurt. I do not identify with any of that, and I do not think my hobby says anything about my values or how I treat women. I'm not asking her to like the same things that I like. I just want basic respect and to not feel judged or gross for enjoying them. There have also been moments that make me wonder if this is partly about image. For example, I'm using a very old iPhone and I want to upgrade to a flagship Android phone. She keeps pushing me to get an iPhone instead, even if it's not the latest model. She says this is because she prefers using iMessage, but in my country, iPhones are also a status symbol. She has mentioned before that appearances matter a lot to her, simply because of how she grew up, which makes me unsure what the real issue is. Lately, I even noticed that I hesitate to talk about things I enjoy around her, or I downplay parts of myself to avoid that reaction. I do not want to feel ashamed of who I am in my own relationship. So how do I bring this up in a way that sets boundaries without turning it into a fight? Is this something that can realistically be worked through, or does this point to like a deeper incompatibility? What should I do? Okay, I will never understand anyone who looks down on others for liking anime and like any kind of pop culture like superheroes or Dungeons and Dragons, stuff like that. Like, dude, come on. The fact that she would link this back to you in a way that is very unflattering, trying to imply that, oh yeah, because you like these things, you must also treat women this way, that is some absolutely toxic behavior. And in my opinion, that's a big red flag. I would really be upset if my partner said anything like that about me, or even slightly implied that in the first place. Now, in my opinion, I think this is absolutely doable. It is completely possible to still have a good relationship and also be involved in these kind of hobbies. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I gotta be honest, like, the way your girlfriend's acting is kind of making me believe that that's gonna be an uphill battle. So yeah, hopefully this works out. Hopefully, like, a conversation could be had where you're like, hey, I like these things, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I'm just trying to, like, explore my hobbies and have fun. And if you do have that conversation, I hope she understands where you're coming from. Because at the end of the day, these really are harmless hobbies. And if she can't see that, then that, in my opinion, is a huge problem. Am I the jerk for leaving my nephews with my brother after he literally wouldn't come back when he said he would? Because at this point, I realize I got signed up for babysitting duty, despite the fact that I only signed up to watch them for like a minute or two while he ran and did something real quick. Because he's really trying to claim that I abandoned his kids when that is absolutely not what happened. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going down. So my brother's 28 years old and I just turned 21. And the both of us still live at home with our parents. Now, my brother has twin boys who are 3 years old, and he does this thing that drives me absolutely insane. He will ask me to watch his kids for just a second while he goes to do something. Maybe he's going to the bathroom, or maybe he's going to grab something from his room. Whatever it is, he always says it'll only be a minute. But trust me, it's never a minute. What actually happens is he disappears for up to like 40 minutes at a time. And if you go looking for him, he's in his room with his headphones on, watching videos or playing a game on his phone. And this happens every single time. It's not even subtle anymore. He just uses whoever's around as free babysitting by pretending he needs a quick break. I always say no now because I know exactly what's going to happen. But last week he caught me at a bad time. I was just sitting on the couch not doing anything, and he asked me if I could watch them for a few minutes while he used the bathroom. I said fine, but I told him very clearly that I had somewhere to be in about 15 minutes and I could not be late. He then said, oh, no problem, I'll be right back. Well, 15 minutes later, he's gone. I texted him and he said 1 minute, but then 2 minutes passed by and I still get nothing in return. I then went to his door and I knocked, and of course I got no answer. It's then that I could hear his game through the door. So either he had headphones in or he was straight up ignoring me. Now I really had to go. I wasn't lying about having to go somewhere. So I went back to the living room, I told the boys to go knock on daddy's door, and then I left. One of them started crying as I walked out, and yeah, that part really sucked. Like I felt that in my chest. But I told my brother when I had to leave. I reminded him, I texted him, I knocked on his door. Like what else was I supposed to do? When I got back home, he was furious. He asked me what kind of person just walks out on two toddlers. In fact, he even went as far as to say that I abandoned them. But I told him I didn't abandon anyone. I gave him multiple warnings and he chose to ignore all of them because he was was too busy on his phone to come back when he said he would. He didn't really have a response to that, but instead just kept shaking his head and saying, "Oh, I shouldn't have left them alone." And look, I get it, they're 3 years old. They can't really take care of themselves, but they're also not my kids. I agreed to watch them for 15 minutes, and I watched them for the 15 minutes. And he agreed to be back in a few, but he wasn't. So who's really the problem here? So am I the jerk? Because I'm still really pissed off and annoyed by this. And now I just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. First of all, there's a clear and obvious pattern here where your brother's like, "Oh yeah, I'll be right back." And then he runs off for 40 minutes just to get a break from the kids. But dude, you didn't sign up for that. You signed up to watch them temporarily and not be their babysitter full time. So for him to be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you abandoned them. You're such a terrible person." Bro, I didn't abandon anybody. I told you I needed to leave. I was banging on your door and you literally left me with no option. So no, you're not the jerk. Your brother's a moron. And I know for a fact if I was in your situation, I would probably never help him out ever again. Am I the jerk for not housing my younger brother for free? Because after my brother and my mom constantly get into fights, my mom is begging me to take him in temporarily. But at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, here's a bit of context just to make sure everyone knows what's up. I'm 27 years old and I'm living alone in an apartment, and I've been in this place since 2019. And honestly, I made it a good spot for myself. My younger brother, let's call him Dave for the sake of the story, is currently 19 years old and still lives with our mom. Dave stays there for free. He doesn't pay rent. He doesn't buy his own food, none of that. The only thing he ever pays for is whenever he goes to Weatherspoons and gets his own food. Well, recently, he and my mom have been getting into a lot of arguments. Arguments that I only know about because I always get phone calls from both of them so they can complain about each other to someone else. It's even gotten to borderline petty where my brother will flat out call our mom a jerk because she asked him to do the dishes or something like that, and then she'll have a go at him for not doing the dishes. Well, my mom had tried to pitch an idea to me. We would convert my living room into a second bedroom for Dave to stay at temporarily for maybe about 8 weeks. Now, I dismissed the idea entirely because basically, given the arguments they were having, I had no idea what he was going to be like at my place. There was also the problem of bills. Dave would be bringing over his own PC so he can game with his friends and partner, meaning that the electricity bill would go up. Also, because someone else will be staying with me, I would no longer get the single person's discount, and thus my council tax would increase significantly. There was also the case that I did speak to Dave about possibly staying with me before those arguments even began, but I mentioned the bills, which would total up to about $400 a month from him, which is a rough estimate, and this is not even including food. Well, Dave immediately refused because he didn't want to pay and just assumed that he was going to stay at mine for free. So because of my refusal, the arguments are only getting worse, and despite me telling our mom to just kick him out, since he is an adult and has his own responsibilities, she refuses to do that and keeps pushing the idea of letting him temporarily stay with me, which will definitely not be temporary, by the way, I can already tell. So should I just let him stay with me for free? And am I the jerk for thinking about charging him bills and thus letting the arguments continue? What should I do? Okay, it is super important for the original poster to understand that this guy will not be staying with you temporarily. It's not just going to be 8 weeks. He's going to be there permanently. He's going to chase you out of this apartment because I'm sure your younger brother is a nightmare to live with. Maybe you've forgotten and you just don't understand the person he's become, but from the sounds of it, your brother's become like a spoiled, rotten brat. He's not contributing anything at home. He doesn't pay for bills. He doesn't pay rent. And I'm not saying he should be paying rent, but he should be at least paying something. Not to mention the fact that he's already expressed disapproval about paying for bills if he did move in with you. My God, this is going to be a nightmare if he gets in your place. Plus, at 8 weeks, it's going to be so hard to get rid of him because Dave seems like the person who would absolutely squat and make sure he stays at your house for as long as possible. So no, you're not the jerk for not giving up your housing for your brother. I would not let him move in for a second. Seriously, any kind of temporary stay is going to become permanent. And in my opinion, this is only going to hurt you and literally nobody else. Would I be the jerk for requesting a room change 4 days into university simply because my 2 other roommates are men? Because right now I don't want to come off as a jerk, but also I am just a little bit uncomfortable by this, and I really don't know what to do now. Here's what's happening. I'm a first-year university student who has just moved into my flat to start the school year. For reference, I'm in New Zealand where the school year starts in February. At my university, we have halls for students to live in. One of these halls are actually several blocks of flats with a common room and a shared laundry area, and this is the hall that I I'm currently in. I'm in a 3-bedroom flat, I'm a female, and my other 2 flatmates are male, and this is just how we were allocated. Now, why do I want to change my flat? Well, one woman was placed with 2 men. Like, do I need to say any more? I feel isolated because I'm the only woman in the flat, and I wouldn't be surprised if the guys felt like they had to walk on eggshells just to make me not uncomfortable, even though the guys themselves are fine. I'm living in a flat with 2 men who are currently pretty much strangers to me. Of course, if I stay, I will likely get to know them more, but currently, even showering makes me feel weird because of this. On the hall application, they always take personal preferences into consideration, and I stated that I did not want to be the only woman, and my future student's advisor told me that they would never put only one person of a gender in a flat, and even one of the employees of the hall also said this. Now, there is a rule that room changes are not supposed to be requested until 2 weeks after move-in day, just to get everyone settled in and not just requesting room changes because they don't know their flatmates and all this other stuff. So acting entitled to an exception being made for me will likely cause conflict. Also, one of the other halls has flooded, meaning that the students in the hall need to be squeezed into other halls including mine. So me making a fuss adds to the difficulty of accommodating these students. I also want to say that both of the guys are super sweet, and I do not think they are dangerous in the slightest. I don't want them to think that they did anything wrong. One of the guys is already incredibly self-conscious, and even brought a gift from his country to give to whomever his flatmates would be to compensate for his poor English. For reference, he is an international student, and so is our other flatmate. He also gave me the gift, but I haven't opened it yet because of the situation at hand. In the flat, my 2 other flatmates prefer to communicate in Mandarin, which is their native language, but they said they will try to make an effort to speak in English more for me. In fact, earlier, one of them apologized to me for not speaking a lot of English in the flat and explained that he was self-conscious when he spoke English because he just didn't think that he was very good at it. So I really don't think this is a fair situation for either of us, but I also really don't want to upset my flatmate because he is trying so hard to accommodate me, and he is super lovely. The gift from him just makes all of this even more difficult because he gave me a gift, and yet I'm wanting to leave because of his gender. So would I be the jerk if I decided to switch rooms? Because I honestly am not sure how to go about doing this. Okay, I totally understand where you're coming from, where it's like, oh, I want to switch rooms, but my roommates are so nice. Like, dude, screw that. If your gut says you want to get out of there and you're not comfortable, then I would leave it at that and I would move forward. And I totally get that he gave you a gift and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna feel bad about this. But you could also just give the gift back to him and be like, hey, give this to your new roommate because I'm switching places. And then just leave it at that. It's not that big of a deal, and I think people would understand where you're coming from if you did explain it to them. This is not a shot at your roommates. This is all about you just feeling more comfortable in your living situation. And if you would rather have 2 female roommates, then that's that. Like, that literally is the end of the conversation, and I think you absolutely should apply for it. So no, I definitely don't think you're the jerk at all. Today, I got hired at probably the worst job I've ever had in my entire life. And even though I've only been there for like 3 days, I currently want to get out and find something else. Because right now, I feel stuck and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying I've only been at this job for 3 days and I already want to get out of here. Even from just the job interview, I could see multiple red flags. Looking back, I wish I never even accepted the position, but with the pay and the hours and in this economy, I just took it. Now, just to get started on some of the messy things that are going on, to give you an idea of where I work, multiple coworkers call out with very little notice. And this is regular enough that the store manager rewrites the schedule at least once a week to accommodate that. So you literally can't trust the first schedule that's emailed out. Like, do I really have to call the store after my day off to verify my shift? What if a coworker lies to me or a manager isn't available to verify it? The company also hired many new people without having them go through any kind of like proper training or any kind of computer modules, to the point where the customer service is not consistently decent and people aren't following proper food safety procedures regularly. I get that everyone has bad days, but this is not that. Also, one of the shift leaders attempted to give her 2 weeks notice, but the store manager convinced her to give them a month to turn it around because he is a store manager from a different location sent in to fix things. Now, just from the training modules alone, I seriously don't want to be here. I've spent more than 12 hours watching videos and taking concise notes, and I'm not even close to being done. I have to learn the roles for the entire store, even though I'm mostly just back of house. These people have also made dishwashing complicated. Yeah, you heard that right, dishwashing of all things. Literally over 7 steps for just cleaning and sanitizing the sink compartments before even washing the mountain of dishes. And you're supposed to do those cleaning steps again after washing dishes. Plus, every time I've come into the store, there are dirty tables and use trays in random places, and the napkins and utensils aren't stocked and they're constantly running out. On a busy day, I get it, but it was slow yesterday, and they had enough people to accommodate a quick clean easily, and the manager on duty can get terminated for missing a single employee's health check-in and verification that they aren't sick before clocking in, which in theory is good, especially because it's food safety, but the manager chewed me out so badly for trying to walk into the office to get him to check me out, and he did this literally in front of coworkers and customers, to the point where my heart was racing for at least 20 minutes afterwards. It was literally my first time making that mistake, and I was trying to follow protocol. I just don't know that specific rule for it. Now, I'm also in a supervisor role. I was told in the interview that we were not supposed to publicly criticize or correct any of our employees. We're supposed to find an appropriate time to take them aside and have a calm conversation. Like, at least take me to the office so that the coworkers that I'm going to be leading don't see me being belittled. Sadly, these are only just some of the red flags that I've noticed, and I'll probably notice more as time goes on. And at this point, I'm already looking for other employment options. And I'm also considering becoming a bartender for a smaller local brewery. I am not going to be putting up with this, especially when the district manager regularly watches us through the security cameras and gets people in trouble for minor things that aren't even dangerous or that bad. Because now I'm sick of this and I just want to get out. Okay, I've been at those kind of jobs where it's like, oh, this looked good at first, but oh man, these people are weird in the interview. Or you get in there and then suddenly this kind of stuff happens. It's just one red flag after another. And honestly, I think this all comes down to a management issue. These people suck at their job, like no wonder coworkers are calling out without saying anything. I totally get it, and you're probably like 6 months away from doing that yourself. These people are exhausting to work for, they don't know what they're doing. The process they're making you go through is way too complicated. Like, it just seems so annoying. I would lose my mind working at a place like this. 7 steps to wash the dishes? Are you kidding me right now? Like, I don't think so. That for me is the most infuriating part about all of this. Like, that sucks. So yeah, I don't blame you for wanting to find a new job and for looking for another one as well. Because that's one of those places that it's just not going to be a long-standing job and you would be better off literally anywhere else. My entitled neighbor has been stealing my water for several years. But once I discovered the truth, I decided to get some revenge, resulting in him losing all the tenants in his house, as well as him needing to move out, all because he couldn't afford to live there by himself. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So I live in Asia and I just purchased a new house. Now, the previous owners were family friends who needed cash urgently, and they haven't been living in my country for nearly 3 years. So I got it for a great price in the middle of the capital city. The sale was finalized at the start of this month, and I moved in right afterwards. The house was definitely a fixer-upper, as the previous owners had left mid-renovation and the main door was locked with just a padlock, not even a door lock itself. The house also had no gate, meaning that anyone could just walk right on it. The first day that I moved in, someone's bike was parked in the garage, so I just parked it on the road on the same day I had the gate installed. Fast forward, and an angry man was knocking on my gate later, and I didn't even bother answering, but through my window I could see him giving up and taking the bike after 15 minutes. So already I wasn't digging this neighborhood, but I didn't have any incidents after that, aside from people not knowing that this was no longer an abandoned house, meaning that my gate was blocked more often than not, but eventually with a no parking sign on my gate, that issue was slowly fixed. Last week, I was having a shower in my bathroom and I noticed my water pressure was lower than usual. I also heard my next door neighbor's water pump going off. Now, this neighbor, who is an older guy, lived in a 3-story house, the first being the lowest and the one that he lived in. The other 2 floors were rented out to other tenants. This guy wasn't happy about the house being sold and voiced many concerns to the previous owners who were my friends. He was super angry about it, and my friends did warn me about the 6-foot guy with 3 dogs. So with this living situation, a water pump is needed to pump water to the tanks on the roof, since the public supplies pressure is not enough to get it up to 3 stories. Now, I heard the water pump going and immediately I was suspicious. Sure, a coincidence can exist, but it still wouldn't hurt to check it out. I waited till his pump turned off and then turned on different taps in the house, and sure enough, the pressure was back to normal in my house. This then made me even more suspicious, but if he was stealing my water, it also made sense. The water bills had been going up over the years this house wasn't even lived in, but the house also had some water leaks, so it was chalked up to that, even if the bills were too high to be caused by just the leaks themselves. Because at this point, things really started to make sense, because it really did seem like some nefarious things were going on. At some point in the last 3 years, this old guy thought he'd save the cost of paying for water and decided to walk onto the property and is now siphoning water from my lines. I couldn't find exactly where the siphoning water was was from, but after checking my pressure multiple times, I was pretty sure. So I sat on it for a few days, thinking if I should confront him, go the legal path, or just let it be. Now, water in my country is very cheap. My total bill, even with washing 3 animals, a car every week, and watering my garden, only costs like $5 per month. And this is even with the neighbor stealing some of it. But it wasn't about how much I was paying, or who was paying for it. It's about entitled old people who think they're deserving of using other people's resources without paying for it, and then getting away with it. It just didn't sit right with me, and I really wanted to teach him a lesson. So what I did was really simple. I turned off my water from all of the main sources. I wouldn't have to break into his property, nor would I be breaking any laws. It was the best way of getting back at him without needing to lift a single muscle. So on Monday, just 4 days ago, I waited till the pump flicked on and turned off the supply. Now, the way the household tank works in my country is that there's a ball valve in the tank which detects the level of water and turns on the pump. If the level doesn't increase, the valve stays open, which electronically sends a signal to the pump to stay on, all the way until the level gets to a point at which the valve closes and also shuts off the pump. However, the level wasn't increasing, and anyone knows that starving a pump of water isn't a good idea. This way, my expectation was that I'd burn out his pump and cause issues with his tenants. Now, what I didn't account for is that his pump running constantly would mess up the fuses by constantly drawing power overnight, and it would absolutely destroy his wiring. If he decided to upgrade his household wiring to a more modern standard, this all would have been prevented, because this house clearly still had 90s era wiring. At around 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard all the residents in the house waking up and talking in hushed voices about why just their house in the neighborhood doesn't have power or water. And this is when I found out about the power part, because the tenants devolved into shouting at their landlord. Our tenant protection laws are also very important, and power and water are classed as essential even on a state level. Cutting those services are grounds for lawsuits, unless due to weather or some kind of unavoidable reason. In this case, the landlord is responsible for keeping the house wiring up to date and in good condition, alongside with the supply of water. So the tenants were not happy, and one of them immediately moved out 2 days later when it was informed that water and power will not be returning the very same day this happened. Both tenants in the 2 floors lodged a complaint with the police, and if a person is in clear breach of the laws, the police have the authority to fine or penalize the person without a court judgment. Now, it can be challenged in court if the person thinks they were unfairly penalized, but they still have to pay the fines and will only be refunded if and when the courts find the fines unlawful. So now the landlord lost both tenants and has to pay a fine of $500, which is a lot of money in our country. He also has to refund the security deposits of both tenants, and he also cannot rent out until both issues are fixed, which will cost him a lot more money. As of right now, he's moving out on Sunday to his daughter's place since he cannot afford to live alone. The tenants were his only source of income, and he's a retired mechanic, so he has no other form of income. He did also find out why the motor kept drawing power, overloaded the wiring, and burned out. He came by to my gate and asked me if I turned off my water, and I said, "Oh yeah, my tank had a new leak on a pipe," and I turned it off till the next day until the plumber came by to fix the issue. Now, my God, the look on his face was priceless. He kept a straight one, but I just knew he was holding back. He just said, "Oh, okay," and then he went back inside. I'm not sure if he knows that I know, but I don't care because you know what? He can't do anything about it. So now I'm getting a plumber down next week to correct my plumbing and remove any pipes that leave my property. So essentially, I got rid of my water issue and a neighbor who could potentially be a pain in the neck, all by simply flicking a tap off. And that probably was the best way of solving this issue that I ever could have come up with. Wow, this guy was a straight up criminal. He was stealing your power and your water. Like, that is some insane level of distrust and like corruption. I just can't imagine trying to do that to somebody. And the amount of time and effort that had to have taken just to make that happen, like, that is crazy, and there is no good excuse for that. So good for you for getting back at this guy and getting some solid revenge, because this guy was stealing from you in a way that is super unacceptable. And I'm so glad that you got back at him in the way that you did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for requesting that my teacher not partner me with my deadbeat father's daughter? Because right now I'm being shunned by his daughter and being treated as if I was bullying her in some kind of way. And right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my father walked out on my mom when she was pregnant with me. They were married for like 5 years at that point, but he was cheating a lot. My mom, who was trying to divorce him, went through a living nightmare because they had just picked up and moved. And you know what? He never even even met me. He didn't show up at court for their divorce or for custody or even for any kind of child support. He went to jail 3 times for failure to pay child support and for trying to avoid child support by quitting his jobs and not declaring his new place of employment. And to this day, I still haven't even met him. But around a year ago, he moved back with his family, which are the affair partner and their kids. He has a daughter that's 5 months younger than me, a son about a half a year younger, and some other kids who are also younger, but I don't know any of their ages. I only know the older 2 ages because of school and sharing some classes with his daughter. She has tried to connect with me, but I told her I wasn't interested as we are not family. Simply put, I don't want to know the affair family. Even though she was upset and cried a little in front of me, she didn't give up. And when we returned to our classes in August, she was suddenly in 4 of mine instead of 1 like last year. So I went to our teacher who assigns a lot of group stuff and I asked her to never pair me with her. I explained the reason why and she was surprised but agreed it would be for the best to avoid hostility during the project and especially if others are working with us. Well, 2 separate times now, she has tried to claim me as a partner or make me a part of her group in some kind of way. The first time as her solo partner and the second time in a bigger group. But both times our teacher refused. This eventually made her realize what I had done. So she told her parents. They went to the principal and demanded a meeting with me and my mom. Now my mom went to the meeting but she left me out of it and explained why to the principal and told him that she didn't think the first time I meet my father should be when he wants to berate me for not working with his daughter. They tried to say I was bullying their daughter and that I should be facing suspension or be forced to make it up to her in some kind of way through some kind of like buddy program. Well, the principal didn't take any of this seriously, but his daughter and son now stare at me a lot more in school the last couple of weeks ever since that meeting. And a couple of her friends said that I was a jerk for embarrassing her like that and not getting to know her in any kind of way. So am I the jerk for shutting this down before it could even take off? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk. This is so weird. Why on earth does she not get the hint that no, you don't want anything to do with her? Like that is so annoying, it's not even funny. And it's especially frustrating that her parents, including your dad, were like, oh, she needs to be suspended or they need to do some kind of like buddy program. And it's like, no, that's not happening. That's weird, incredibly intrusive, and thank God the principal's like, yeah, I'm not taking any of this seriously. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here because everybody's behavior, in my opinion, is absolutely insane. My roommate is frustrated and very angry with me after he slept through his alarm, despite the fact that I woke him up like he asked me to do. And now, after not doing well on his medical school exam, he's blaming me and saying that this is my fault. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk or not. Here's what happened. So me and my roommate, who we will call Justin, are medical students. We've been living together as roommates for 2 years, and we live in a hostel. Last week were our final year exams, and it was absolutely a nightmare. We were surviving on 2 to 3 hours of sleep daily, fueled by coffee and energy drinks, and yeah, I know it's not healthy, but there's no other way to pass. On the last day of exams, Justin was unusually exhausted. At around 1 o'clock in the morning, he decided to sleep and told me to wake him up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And you know what? I agreed. However, by 2:30 in the morning, I was completely done. My brain was shutting down, my notes were getting blurry, and I knew if I stayed up any longer, I would pass out. So I decided to wake Justin up early. I woke him up at 2:30 in the morning and I told him the time and suggested that he set an alarm so he wouldn't oversleep. So Justin sat upright, he rubbed his eyes, and he nodded and said, okay. And I was like, okay, well, don't forget to set the alarm, and then almost instantly fell asleep. Well, we both woke up at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and Justin freaked out, accusing me of not waking him up as promised. Well, I reminded him that I did wake him up at 2:30 in the morning and suggested that he set an alarm. Well, Justin said that he was too sleepy to comprehend what was happening and insisted that I should have stayed up to wake him up at 3 or at least made sure that he was fully awake before sleeping. Well, fast forward and Justin's exam didn't go well, and now he's blaming me. Now, I understand the frustration, but I really think that he's being unfair. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk because Justin is absolutely responsible for himself. If he wanted you to wake him up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, well, congratulations, he got woken up 30 minutes early and he was given clear instructions to set an alarm. And as someone who went to college and had a lot of stressful exams, it goes without saying that all of that is on your shoulders. If you want to pass and get all your exams taken care of and feel somewhat prepared and like ready for what you need to do, then that falls on your shoulders and nobody else. So the fact that he was trying to shift that blame over to you and make it your fault that he didn't do what he needed to do to try and wake up on time when he needed to get up, that in my opinion is super toxic. There's no good excuse for that because at the end of the day, he is an adult. This is his responsibility, regardless if you guys do share classes. Like no one's gonna carry him across the finish line of becoming a doctor, especially if he's gonna shift the blame like this over something that he himself had full control over. And yeah, I've been woken up at like early hours in the morning and not been sure what's going on, but he should have planned all of this better. Like, there's no good excuse in this situation. But also, why is he himself not setting an alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning? Why rely on somebody else when you have so much on the line? Like, is it really that hard to set an alarm instead of blaming your friend for not doing it for you? Like, that's so stupid and irresponsible. You're not his parent and you're definitely not his mom. So the fact that he was like, oh, I can't believe you didn't stay up with me and make sure I was awake. It's like, dude, what are you on about? I literally woke you up like you asked me to do. So no, you're not the jerk here, because honestly, Justin sounds incredibly entitled. Because if he really wanted to wake up at a specific time, then he should have been the one to set the alarm. My mom tricked me into giving up my last name that belonged to my dad who passed away so that I would take on my stepdad's last name with the explicit promise that she would change my last name back to my dad's name when I turned 18. Well, now that I'm 18, she is taking a big step backwards, asking me what the rush is and why it was such a big deal in the first place. And now I'm incredibly angry, and I lashed out in a way that I haven't done ever in my life. And I'm left wondering if I might be the jerk in this situation, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and my dad passed away when I was 6 years old. My parents had separated at the time, and mom was already dating her husband at that point. They decided to get married and give me a family unit after dad passed away. Then, within a few months, they were sitting me down to say they wanted to change my last name to their last name. My mom said it was important so that her husband could do his part to take care of me without any kind of issues concerning my last name. I told her I wanted to keep my last name, and her husband wasn't my dad, and I didn't want to lose more of my dad. I even cried about how important it was to me. Well, she and her husband promised me repeatedly that they would pay for me to change my name back as soon as I was 18 years old, and it was only to make life easier when I was younger, and that people would make life more difficult for her husband to do certain things with me. Now, I always regretted it, but believed for a long time that they would follow through. But about a year ago, when I mentioned it to my mom, she told me there was no rush, and I told her I wanted the name change before graduation so I could have it on my diploma. There was a lot of back and forth, and her husband decided to add his own comments of basically saying, well, what's the big deal anyways? He'd also say that his name had been my name longer than my dad's last name had been used, but I said I didn't care, and I wanted my actual name back that was my actual dad's name too. Eventually, my mom admitted that she wasn't going to pay for me to change it back, and she believed I should keep her husband's name because he raised me for so much longer and had apparently done so much for me in my life. But I said no. She told me it wasn't my choice, and I told her that she would not stop me once I turned 18. I also told her that she was never going to have a good relationship with me ever again after lying to me and letting me down. She then called me overdramatic, but I spent the rest of my time living with them very cold and somewhat hostile, and I just shut them out as much as I could. I eventually moved out of their house and in with my cousin, and I filed the day after my 18th birthday to change my name back. My court date is coming up very soon, and my mom knows about it because of extended family. She has tried to forbid me from changing my last name back, and she even lied and said her husband adopted me too, so I couldn't. But I confirmed that didn't happen. Eventually, she told me I was disrespecting them as my parents, but I told her then to shut up because she's a liar, and I don't care what she has to say about this because her opinion does not matter here. My mom then started crying, and I told her good. I told her that she lost me over this and it was her own fault. I told her I would have never said yes to the change had I known, and I told her to suck it up because she was not in charge of me anymore. Some extended family are backing my mom because of how I spoke to her, and mom told me I had no reason to speak to her like I did. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all, and you have every right to be upset. Your mom literally lied to you. She tricked you into changing your last name and then said, oh yeah, we'll pay for it when you're 18 to change it back. And now that you're 18 years old and you're about to graduate, she's running it back like, oh, what's the rush? It's not that big of a deal. It's like, what are you talking about? You said that you would let me change it back, and you said you would pay for it as well. Like, that was the one connection you had to your dad, and guess what? He's dead. And now she's like, oh, well, what do you mean? Like, that is so crazy toxic, it's not even funny. So yes, I would be upset as well, and I don't blame you for changing your last name, or for even snapping at your mom like this, because she straight up lied to you just to get you to change your name when you were a kid. And then for her to give false promises that she knew she would never deliver on, in my opinion, is something that is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for yelling at my mom after my brother ran away after they kicked him out of the house? Because right now, everybody's upset with me suddenly, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's Here's what happened. So my family is pretty religious and conservative. I have my own opinions, but I always keep my mouth shut. I just avoid my family for the most part, and my brother, who's 20 years old, still lives at home, and well, ever since he was a kid, he's always been a little bit out there. He is very open-minded and artistic as well, so he's always pissing off our parents and my sisters. He was a really good volleyball player in high school, but quit his senior year just to spite our parents, so I'm sure you can tell exactly what kind of guy he is. But also, he's the only boy, so our parents just keep letting it go. Anyways, he recently acted in some silly amateur film for one of his friends, and in it, he kisses a boy. And this is something that I genuinely just don't care about. Anyways, the film wasn't a secret, and it was posted publicly, so someone we know came across it, and it was sent to our parents, who ended up kicking him out. My younger sister and her husband offered to take him in, but my brother left not even a week later because our brother-in-law was being a jerk to him about the film. Now, no one knows where he is, and everybody is pissed off and incredibly angry, and I only know he's alive because he texted me a few times. My mom calls the whole family over almost every day to play the blame game, and yesterday it was my turn, and she was basically saying that as the oldest, I didn't do my job, and I led him astray because I failed as a sister or some other crap like that. But after she said that, I got so angry that I told her to shut up and that this was her fault more than it was mine. Now, this doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it's still super disrespectful in our family, so everyone was upset with me for yelling at mom and for breaking her heart even more than what my brother did. I told them to stop acting like victims and that they had better pray that he decides to see any of us ever again, and then I just left. Now, I feel better, but the entire family is angry with me, especially now that my brother isn't around to take their anger. I wish I could run away too, but unfortunately, I have responsibilities tying me here, so I'm wondering if I'm the jerk and if I should apologize. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all because this really is not your fault. The fact that your parents, who are the ones who kicked him out of the house, are now somehow going around trying to point the blame at other people as to why he's run away and like is not coming back, like that is crazy in my opinion and absolutely not your fault. Like, you're not the one that put him out on the street. That absolutely falls on your mom and your dad. And also, in my opinion, I think it's so weird that she's trying to be like, wow, you led him astray as a big sister. You didn't do a good enough job. This is your fault. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Are you not his mom? If anybody led him astray and screwed him over, it was you. And I can only speak for myself in this situation, but if someone's gonna make up this kind of garbage about me and somehow try to make me the new scapegoat of the family since my brother's now out of the picture, like at that point, I would really speak my mind to these people because your parents sound incredibly immature and very unhealthy. And the fact that they want to blame you for your brother running off, in my opinion, that is incredibly toxic. My boyfriend's ex spent the night in my bed with my boyfriend ignoring all of my calls the entire night. And even though the next morning I'm considering breaking up with him, my boyfriend claims that nothing happened between the two of them and that he was just comforting her over the fact that they broke up. But right now I feel very confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm extremely hurt, but to my boyfriend's credit, he was very upfront about everything. He texted me immediately the morning after to tell me everything about this. Now for context, my boyfriend, let's call him James, broke up with his ex-girlfriend, who we will call Whitney, about 2 years ago. They chose to stay friends, and this has caused some issues between James and I, mostly because Whitney just can't get over the breakup. She thinks her and James are soulmates, and she just refuses to accept that he stopped being in love with her. So a conversation they will very often have is James literally spending hours going over the logic of why he broke up with her. He tries to reassure her since they're still friends and she's still hurting, but I have witnessed some of these conversations, and he's loving but firm. I suspect some of you will say there's something going on, but there really isn't. James is definitely over her. James and I moved in together 2 weeks ago, and this has caused Whitney to be worse than ever. Like, she relapsed with the depression and the crying fits. They're happening constantly now. I went back to my parents' place this weekend because I had to pack my car full of some more of my things, and I spent the Saturday there. Now, Whitney must have known this because Saturday night, she showed up at our place crying and wailing and honestly just giving the works. We have a doorbell camera, and I got a notification as soon as she was at the door. Now, I didn't see it right away, but as soon as I saw it, I texted and called James, and I checked our indoor camera to see what was going on. Now, this is where James definitely messed up, and he even admits to this, because he did not text me the entire night while Whitney was there. So all I knew was that she showed up. I checked our indoor camera that we keep in the living room by the front door, and it was completely turned off. And this is normal. We only turn it on when we're away from home. But I was extremely upset and distraught as I was imagining the absolute worst. I trust James, but I just didn't understand why he wouldn't answer my calls and he admits that it was horrible of him. Now, I was ready to break up with him Sunday morning, but he texted me and immediately let me know that Whitney had come over. He said it sounds really bad, but she spent the night, but nothing happened, and he set up the indoor camera in the bedroom to prove it. Now, I didn't want to believe him, but I did watch the footage, and even though it shows both of them laying in bed, it's true that Whitney was just crying while James was consoling her. Now, there are some things that he did that bother me a lot. At some point, he kissed her forehead, and he hugged her and held her close several times, and I'm honestly speechless at that. But I understand he knew there was a camera on him the entire time, and he knew I would see him doing that. So I guess he doesn't see that as cheating. So basically, James is asking me for understanding and for forgiveness. I have the proof that nothing happened, but I am still hurt. This isn't how I imagine us starting our life together. So honestly, what are some healthy steps that we can make for our relationship? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, this story's insane in my opinion. There is no way you're possibly letting James get away with this. Like seriously, this is not okay. Whitney is obviously trying to get back with your boyfriend, and you're just trying to be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing happened. He set up the camera. And it's like, no, you don't know that at all. The cameras were off and he only set it up after the fact. Like, this is crazy because clearly James and Whitney are not over each other. If he actually cared about you, he would have been like, wait a second, why are you at my house? You need to leave. I need you to go home. Whitney having these depressive episodes and crying fits. Like, what in the world is going on? Her screaming and crying about not being in a relationship with James is just a ploy for her to literally get back in bed with him. And guess what? She did that, but in your bed. Because at the end of the day, you have literally no proof that nothing happened. Because in my opinion, I think something absolutely happened. And who knows how long it's been happening too. Because this behavior is absolutely a deal breaker for me. And if James can't stand his ground and have a backbone and tell Whitney to get lost, then there is no way I would ever see this relationship working out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not letting my partner make a fake proposal while me and him were on vacation in Paris? Because after I shut down his idea in front of the Eiffel Tower, he now seems incredibly upset. And at this point, I'm not entirely sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner and I went on vacation last week for our 2-year anniversary, and we just got back 2 days ago. Now, it was a fantastic, amazing, and romantic vacation, all up to the point when my partner suggested that we ask a stranger to take a picture of us and a fake proposal in front of the Eiffel Tower. When he asked this, my heart started beating so fast. I immediately assumed he was saying fake proposal as a ruse for a real proposal, which is not something that we talked about yet. I think I just said, wait, what do you mean? And he said that proposal pictures in this spot were really popular, and we should take the opportunity while we can. I said I wasn't really interested in a fake proposal picture, and that I thought it was weird that he would suggest that. Well, we then moved on pretty quickly, and then we went to dinner. When we got back to our hotel that evening, I asked him about it, since it had been on my mind, and I could tell that I had actually really upset him. So I asked him explicitly, were you planning on actually proposing to me and I just ruined it? And he said no, that he doesn't think we're ready for that step. And for the record, I completely agree. Our relationship was long distance for the last 8 months, and I am planning on moving in with him when my lease is up in January. He said that he always thought the proposal picture in front of the Eiffel Tower was really romantic, and that he's worried whenever he actually does propose, it won't be as romantic as Paris. So he wanted to get the picture while he could. Well, I apologized, but told him that I was only interested in actual proposal pictures, and that I would love them whenever and wherever it happened. He was pretty crestfallen since this conversation, and I really felt like I genuinely ruined something for him. I called some friends when we got home, and I got some mixed advice. Some agreeing that it was a really odd request, and some saying that I should have just taken the fake proposal photo, which would have been no harm done. So am I the jerk for not taking the photo with him? Because right now, I really feel like I disappointed my partner. No, I don't think you're the jerk. Like, this really is a weird request, and in my opinion, it's not entirely appropriate. Like, sure, it seems like he's kind of like future-proofing the situation, but wouldn't you want the photo of like the actual proposal itself? Why not just plan for that instead of having like a placeholder picture? Like, that doesn't make any sense, and it seems kind of weird in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk, because that really is a weird request. And if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Entitled customers make my job so hard, especially when they try to make custom orders at our restaurant for stuff that is absolutely not on our menu. And now, after dealing with this for so long, I feel like I'm at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I don't understand customers who can't just accept if a restaurant has a policy, or how restaurants want to serve their food. I've been to a restaurant before where they had mushrooms in the restaurant for one dish, but I wanted a different dish and asked if I could substitute the broccoli my dish came with for sauteed mushrooms instead. Well, the server server politely told me no, and I accepted it and just chose another option. I didn't make it hard for the server or the managers, or even the kitchen staff or literally anybody. I didn't tell the staff how it's such a simple request, and it doesn't make sense for them to just not do it. I didn't say how other restaurants can do it, so why can't they? It's how the restaurant wants to serve their food. If I don't like it, I can choose to not eat there. I would not sit there and give the server and the manager a hard time. People open restaurants to serve food the way they want to serve it. I'm so tired of people thinking that they can substitute everything or modify everything or build dishes however they want just because the restaurant has some ingredients in the store. It doesn't matter if it's a simple request. If the restaurant says they can't do it, then they can't do it. If a restaurant told me they can't substitute broccoli for carrots, even if it didn't make sense to me why they couldn't, I wouldn't question it. If they say they can't, then they can't. End of story. Well, this one lady did that today. We explained to her politely that we cannot accommodate the substitution that she wanted. Yes, her request was not a crazy ask, but we simply just don't serve it that way. We don't offer that substitution. That's why it's not on the menu. We don't have a button in the system for it, and the kitchen staff were instructed to not do that long before she even became a customer here. She said that we were being difficult for not doing it for her, and she's never been to a restaurant that never accommodated this substitution for her. We explained to her that not all restaurants operate the same way. We even suggested a similar dish for her that did have the ingredients that she wanted, but she refused and said if we didn't accommodate her, she would just leave, but then she wouldn't leave. And trust me, I wanted to tell her to just leave, but I couldn't. I was hoping she would get up and leave on her own, but she stayed and continued to argue with me about how difficult I was being. She said we have the ingredients in the restaurant, so why can't we just do it for her? She started saying how she's from a bigger city and how she came to do a nice big story on us, and now she won't do it because we can't accommodate her. She then said that she won't recommend anyone to us and how she's uncomfortable because we told her no, and how it's bad service and bad business. At this point, I really don't care. If you're gonna go to restaurants and act like restaurants have to fulfill your every wish just because they have the ingredients in their kitchen to do so, and argue with the servers and the manager, just get out and never come back. We don't need your good story that you were probably never even going to write for us anyway. I hate people who threaten restaurants with bad reviews, because seriously, go ahead and do it then. Don't sit here and threaten me with it just so you can try and get your way. We have plenty of loyal customers who are perfectly happy with how we serve our food. We don't need mean customers. We actually would rather you never come back. And don't recommend your friends to us either, because if they're just like you, then we do not want them here either. Okay, I absolutely agree with the original poster here. People who act like this at restaurants are so annoying. Like seriously, there's a menu for a reason. These are the things we can make, and that is all you're gonna get. You're not gonna get some extra special meal that only you can have. Like that's really annoying, and honestly, anybody who acts like that is a piece of garbage. Especially when they're like, oh, I was gonna give you a good review, but now I'm not gonna do it. And it's like, okay, go ahead and write your bad review. At the end of the day, you won't come back, and I will still have a job. Like one bad review is not gonna take down a restaurant, idiot. Like what are you thinking? So yes, I completely agree with this story, because people who act like this are absolutely obnoxious. Am I the jerk for telling my brother that his new girlfriend is no longer welcome at family events after she's done some sketchy things to offend the family? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So my brother's new girlfriend, who we will call Avery, lived with her ex for 2 months before being kicked out and ended up back at her parents' house. She had known my brother, who we will call Josh, for a few years apparently, and he moved out of our parents' house to rent them an apartment together. Not only did he drive to another state to get her, but it's been over 2 months, and she still doesn't have a job to help with any of the bills. But my issue isn't really her not having a job, but instead, it's the things she's said and done over time. Mind you, this is the very first relationship he has ever been in, and the first girl he's ever brought around the family in general. Now, I'm a 25-year-old male, and I've got to know her over time, and she has been getting on my nerves, but I wanted to post here to get opinions if it's just me or not. It's been over 2 months of them living together, and she still hasn't applied to any jobs. I'm able to overlook that since it's not my place to say anything. However, she's also made a nasty comment about our cousin wearing a bikini, refuses to speak or even acknowledge our parents, and even lied to my brother about having no contact with her parents, when if you look on social media, that's an obvious lie, and they do in fact keep in touch and have a good online relationship. The final straw for me was when I texted him and didn't get a response. So I called him just for him to say, wait, why is your number not saved? And it's then that I heard laughing in the background. Now here's the thing, I've had the same number for years, and we were texting days before this, so it gave me a funny feeling. So I texted him yesterday asking him to not bring her to Thanksgiving dinner if she's going to refuse to speak to my parents, who have been nothing but welcoming to her. And also, she is not welcome over to my house anymore. Now here's the thing, my parents are aware of my thoughts and feelings about it, and they don't want her ignoring them. My dad is neutral and wants him to learn on his own, and my mom doesn't really favor her much, but doesn't want him to cut her off for speaking up. So I was asked to talk to Josh about it, and I have, but since it was brought up, nothing's been said from him about the situation. And no, he has not acknowledged it. It makes family gatherings awkward if one person isn't going to acknowledge everybody else, and my mom calls me upset about it often, leaving me with no direction on what to do, besides asking him to not bring her around if she's going to be rude and a walking red flag. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk, but honestly, I think this might be one of those situations where no matter how right you may be, you're still going to be seen as the bad guy. Because I see exactly what you're talking about. Avery comes off as incredibly manipulative, and the fact that she deleted your phone number from your brother's phone after you've had this phone number for a long time is like really sketchy in my opinion. And the fact that they're laughing about it in the background, like they knew what they were doing. Avery was well aware that they wanted to do this, and the fact that there was some kind of reaction honestly speaks volumes to the type of person Avery is. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, but I think you might be the only one that stands against this, because Avery's behavior is coming off as a little bit too sketchy, and that is something that I definitely would not want to ignore. Am I the jerk for not wanting to go on vacation with my friends, all because of the way they micromanage all of our expenses? Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old male, and I have a group of 5 friends from university who are around the same age as me. For the past 2 years, we've gone on vacation together. First, we went to Mexico, and then last year, we went to Egypt. We've always had a great time, and we get along well. However, when it comes to sharing the cost, I find myself struggling. And it's not the group that has an issue, but instead, it's me who has the problem. To provide some context, we met at university 9 years ago and have been working for the last 5 years. Our university was ranked number 1 in the country at the time, and we all landed jobs just a month after graduation. So I mention that to illustrate that we are financially secure. I know for a fact that each of us earns between $80,000 to $100,000 annually. In terms of vacation cost, I typically spend around $3,000 for each trip, which is more than what my friends spend since I'm more comfortable with spending. Additionally, I'm aware that the vacation money we receive amounts to at least double of what any of them has spent on these trips. So this is the problem that I have. Every night they ask for a check, they start checking off items for everyone, and then make that person pay exactly that amount. To me, that's embarrassing. Getting nasty looks from the waitress who doesn't make in a day what these people make in an hour, waiting there for 10 to 15 minutes while they argue about who had what, and then starting to count bills and coins to pay. I suggested we split the bill 5 ways, but they just don't want to do that. They have mentioned that I'm the only one who drinks alcohol with dinner, and that it's not fair if they have to pay extra for it. And we're talking about maybe $2. I even offered to pay more, but they still refuse because some are not even big eaters and don't think they should pay extra for others. So basically, it's 4 versus 1. To make matters worse, they spend every night comparing Uber bills because maybe I paid a couple of dollars less for the ride. So now they're planning on having a trip for this year, and it could be the last one, as some of them want to start families, but I'm thinking of saying no, I just can't do this anymore. I enjoy our trips, but getting a pay request for $3 because I had a couple glasses of rum that someone else paid for at a hotel just honestly messes with my mood. But also, I'm the only one who has a problem with this, and I want to ask if maybe I'm the jerk, or if this is really just a strange way to handle finances. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think the way your friends are acting is really strange, and honestly, it sounds super annoying. And it's also seemingly over everything, like even down to the dollars and coins that you might be spending. Like seriously, who cares? Like just let it go. Now the original poster went on to say that they can't split the bill because most places they visit won't do that. So I kind of understand where you're coming from, but also it seems like out of everything that might go wrong on this trip, if this is the only thing that's frustrating you, then this really is not that big of a deal. Like if I was in your shoes, I would be weighing the pros and cons, and if this really is the only bad thing that happens, and everything else is like an amazing trip and you have so much fun, then I would just plan accordingly. I would say, okay, anytime we buy something, it's gonna be a hassle, and just be ready to pay whatever you need to pay, with maybe like small bills at the ready. I think just a few small adjustments really could make a big difference here. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for feeling this way, but I do think it's completely doable. I'm tired of customers who are immune compromised from coming to our restaurant and making demands that we cannot accommodate, because if they really cannot be around people, then maybe going to a restaurant is not the best idea. Here's what happened. So I had a guest come in asking to sit outside in 50-degree weather with rain on the way in less than an hour, all because they were immune compromised. Well, they then got pretty upset when I told them that we had no service outside and that we would not be able to sit them somewhere devoid of people. Now, not to sound like a jerk, but a restaurant is the last place that you should be if you're immune compromised. You know how many chefs, managers, cooks, dishwashers, bussers, hosts, food runners, bartenders, and servers come in sick? How many managers will tell us workers to just pop an aspirin and come in if you can't get your shift covered? Or how many people have sick kids that will carry those germs to work? Or how many people go outside with the flu, or a cold, or even a bad cough, or without even washing their hands properly? How many of us just take the train, the bus, the Uber, a taxi, or a Lyft to work, all packed and filled with germs? Not to mention that even on a kind of slow night, there are no areas devoid of people in the restaurant. Do you know how many times my coworkers have told me they're feeling sick today? I've worked at a lot of restaurants across the country, and we come in sick all the time. Guests come in sick all the time. And I'm not trying to scare anyone for saying that they're dumb for wanting to take precautions, but a restaurant in the busiest part of the city on a Saturday at 7 just might be the place you shouldn't be going out to. Okay, honestly, I completely agree with the original poster. If you really are immune compromised and you can't be around people, demanding accommodation at a restaurant that literally just can't do what you're asking of them, that in my opinion is super weird and super toxic. And sure, you're not trying to downplay people for taking precautions, but if you really are immune compromised, then maybe get some takeout. Like, don't go to a restaurant and be like, can we sit next to nobody on this busy Saturday night? It's like, no, I can't do that. That's like literally impossible. And you can't sit outside in the rain because, yeah, I'm not going to serve that. So yes, I completely agree with the original poster because customers who act like that are incredibly annoying. I own an exotic car rental company, and I honestly hate how fake all of my clients are, despite the fact that I make a lot of money off of them. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I own an exotic rental car company in one of the largest markets for it in the United States. Along with cars, I rent out boats, houses, and even watches. And on average, I profit about $40,000 to $50,000 a month. I love what I do because it lets me own very nice things without having to pay for them out of my own pocket. But right now, I've begun to despise my clientele because the rapper in the G-Wagon you see on Instagram is renting it from me for $899 a day. Then they film their music video on my boat for $3,000 a day and then pretend to live in my house that I rent to them for $1,000 a night. And the iced out paddock he's wearing is another $1,500 a day to rent. The finance guru in the 911 you see on TikTok with a full gold Rolex has rented both from me on a weekly basis for $2,500. And sure, I get it. Money attracts money, and renting things to help show off help further their businesses. But it also makes me despise them. When I originally started, I wanted to cater to the car enthusiast. I wanted to rent to the dude who just turned 50 and wanted to rent a Lamborghini to celebrate, or the guy who wanted a classy car for his wedding. But unfortunately, that's not where the money is. It's way too easy to make so much money off of renting to people who are just trying to flex, which is why I expanded into renting yachts, houses, and watches. A couple months ago, we had a client rent a Ferrari 488 and post on Instagram in the car with $1,000 in singles. He left an ATM receipt in the car from the transaction, and it showed he had a $40 available balance after withdrawing $1,000. And I honestly felt really bad for the guy. No amount of flexing on Instagram is going to fill whatever void you're trying to fill. So please, just remember that everything you see online is extremely fake. And unfortunately, that's now expanded into the real world too. Okay, this is honestly so relieving to hear because sometimes when you look at those posts on Instagram or even like videos on TikTok, it makes you wonder how these people have that kind of money. Like, I don't know about you, but it is rough out here. So whenever I see posts like that, I'm always like, oh man, I am just not doing good enough financially. So this story to me is really reassuring that maybe I'm not doing as bad as I think I am, because most of these supposed financial gurus are just lying out of their teeth. They're renting these cars, they're renting the yachts, they're renting the expensive jewelry and all this other stuff. So if anything, these people are just playing dress up for thousands of dollars a day. And it's all for what? Internet points? Like getting a number up on your post? Like, that's so weird and stupid. But also, you know what? If it helps your business grow, then fine, go ahead and do it. Like, if you have the expendable income and this is going to help you go to like that next level, then why not rent out a G-Wagon and see if your business can go from there? But overall, I find this incredibly hilarious because nobody in their right mind, especially nowadays, could ever afford any of the stuff being mentioned here. An entitled Karen calls the police on me after I parked my car in a handicap spot that she demanded she deserved more than me. But after the police show up and investigate the situation, they find out that not only is her license and her plates completely suspended, but this Karen is also using a handicap sticker illegally. And I've honestly never been happier to watch somebody's car get towed away in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm backed into a handicap spot outside of a big box store. I just barely put the car in park and had yet to put my tag in the window when another car pulled into the hatch mark area next to me. That's when the entitled Karen of this story gets out of the car and starts cussing me out because now she needs to park illegally because of people like me who park park in handicapped spots without a tag. I let her go on for a good 30 seconds while I finished taking my hearing aids out, as they were starting to hurt my ears, and I then opened my door, and I looked directly at her while I took the tag from the door, and I hung it on the mirror. And the look of shock on this entitled Karen's face was absolutely priceless, and I only wish I could have taken a picture of it. She then walks away, ranting and raving about how much of a jerk I was for letting her go on like that, and then telling me that it's all my fault. I then just go into the store, but she is still screaming and hollering at me. Now, about what, you might be asking? Honestly, I'm just glad I don't know. I go on about my shopping, I check out, and then I head back out to the car. As I'm approaching, I see 2 police cars parked in front of my car with 2 officers chatting. Thinking nothing of it, I put my bags in the trunk and close it. One of the officers then asks if this is my car, and I say to him, "Yeah, is there a problem?" Well, they then explained they received a call from an irate shopper who stated the person driving this car was harassing her. And at this point, I started laughing so hard that I couldn't breathe, with the officers staring at me incredibly confused. I then had the pleasure of telling them my story. And you know what? They laughed as well. And they said that my story lines up better with what they saw on the store's cameras, as well as what the associate at the door said. They then ran my information, verified that my handicap tag was valid, and said I was good to go. Now, the officer of the police car that was in front of me never moved their car, so I couldn't leave, but I sure didn't mind. I wanted to see what happened. I then watched as a lady turned white as a ghost when she came out of the doors to see her car being strapped down on the back of a tow truck. But her white then went to red as she was handed a number of citations. As it turned out, her car had suspended plates, her license was suspended, and the handicap tag displayed had been void for being used illegally. And as a side note, for those of you who may not know, you can only park in the designated spot when the person who was issued the tag is in the vehicle, and the person doesn't need to be the driver, meaning that if you're found in violation of this, the tag may be suspended or revoked. This entitled Karen then stood around screaming at anyone who had the misfortune of being in her vicinity, but I thankfully got away from that, and I drove out of the parking lot with a giant grin on my face. Wow, what is wrong with that lady? Like, seriously. She not only decided to pick a fight with someone parking in a handicap spot, but also literally put a target on her back for the police to be like, wait a second, you're the one in the wrong. Her license is suspended, the plates are suspended, the tag is being used illegally. Like, this Karen hit all the marks of being a total moron while also literally sabotaging her life. But you know what? I love the way the original poster handled this, because they were calm and collected throughout this entire ordeal, which is a lot better than how I would have handled it, trust me. Because this Karen was completely out of line, and it is so satisfying seeing that karma absolutely took her down. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for requesting an explanation from my sister-in-law after she literally spent $1,000 of my money without my consent? Because right now I'm still incredibly angry, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So this past summer, I underwent a lengthy surgical procedure that required several weeks in the hospital out of town and several months of follow-up. I needed to have someone stay and help me over those first 8 weeks, so I rented a large house on the water with a pool. And I did that because I wanted those who came to help me to have some kind of enjoyable environment. Eventually, family and friends offered to help, and a schedule was made. Basically, people made it a vacation and met my needs while enjoying the amenities. And my late husband's sister was the first to take advantage of the great setup. She stayed a week, and she arrived while I was still in the hospital, and then hustled out as fast as possible and left the day that I was discharged. She didn't even bother to visit me while I was in the hospital because she didn't like the traffic. She effectively did nothing for me, but also enjoyed the beautiful home and the amenities. Prior to the surgery, I let her know that I was leaving $1,000 in the home to be used exclusively for items needed for the house, as well as paper and laundry products and cleaning supplies. And this also included any needs my dog might need, who's also staying in the house when I was discharged. Well, imagine my shock when I discovered that she spent all the money in 6 short days. Hurt and feeling used, I decided to table the issue till I was feeling better. As I was recovering, I was not texting or answering calls, and my phone was off. I needed all of my energy for my literal survival. There was no consideration for what I was going through, and thus no communication for me. Weeks later, her husband made a feeble attempt to admonish me for not texting and calling her to make her feel better, but saying sorry, not sorry was my response to this entitled one. Nearly 3 months later, I was back home and she came to visit, and after a pleasant visit, I asked her what made her think that it was okay to spend all the money I had left for use at the house. She said she had given me receipts for her expenses, and this is true, but she began charging me before she even left home. Body wash, breakfast, chewing gum, And then she stated she used it to stock up the kitchen, and I asked, okay, for who? Since it was bits of leftovers, who was she leaving these for? She had several notes stating that she used her own credit card and no receipts were available, listing food and gas, despite the fact that she has an electric car. Then she stated that I had gifted it to her, but I reminded her of my instructions and I blatantly stated that no, I didn't. Then she stated it was her expense account, and I asked her why she thought she was entitled to an expense account and what made her think that I would provide one. When I originally rented the house, she shared that she had bragged to friends about her wonderful vacation planned at my summer rental. And trust me, I fully realize that this bridge is burned, though I cannot imagine what difference it honestly could have made. So am I the jerk for bringing this up in the first place? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk for bringing this up, because honestly, I would have done the same thing. Who in their right mind would spend over $1,000 on food? And this is in 6 days we're talking about. Like seriously, you could spend like what, $100 and still have plenty of food left over, especially if you know what you're doing and you're making your own stuff. Like your sister-in-law absolutely took advantage of you, and they took advantage of the fact that you were having surgery and that you weren't even at the house at the time. Like this lady's a piece of garbage. She literally spent all of your money in 6 days. Like, are you kidding me right now? And then she has the audacity to turn around and try and make this your fault. It's like, what are you talking about? She tried to make up all this stuff of like, oh, you gave that money to me, it was a gift. Then she tried to claim it for like food and gas, even though she has an electric car. Like this lady is so full of garbage, it's not even funny. So no, you're not the jerk for bringing this up. Your sister-in-law is a garbage human being, and the fact that she did this in some kind of weird attempt to like take advantage of you and gain clout with her friends, in my opinion, says everything you would ever need to know about her. My idiotic managers refuse to hire people to replace those that quit, leaving the rest of us completely understaffed and overwhelmed. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So about 2 years ago, I started at a store, and I had two options, either work with meat or the cashier. Now, I chose meat and it was okay, even though I really hated it, but then my supervisor got transferred, and we were down a person, but nobody replaced him, aside from a new supervisor who we knew. Then another coworker kept missing days and got canned, but again, no replacement to be found. So now we're down to 2 people. And at this point, we're stuck with 6 people, 3 that show up from the morning till the early afternoon, and 3 in the afternoon all the way to the evening. So this was a 6-day work week, which I also didn't like, but I needed a job. So we all got 1 day off. So when someone from the afternoon shift, my shift, would take a day off, we get overworked when there's many customers. But anytime we hear about the subject of getting more help, our boss makes it clear that he won't hire anyone. That is, unless he cuts hours. We tell him what's going on, and he has cameras so he knows how many customers we get and how little work we get done versus when we have 3 people, but it all falls on deaf ears. And he also makes boneheaded decisions. Now, for a bit of context, Mondays are an absolute nightmare. Many customers come in, so we really need all hands on deck. So to top it all off, one of us has Monday off. So we're down to 2 people for the busiest day of the week. He will send for help, but only to cover lunch and nothing else. To make matters worse, he does hire people, but only for cashier positions while we need people. Being understaffed not only affects us being overworked, but customers can only be so patient and waiting if there's only one person for 4 or more customers, because then they just straight up leave. However, again, all of this is made very clear, but the boss does nothing but put blame on us if we have low sales. And yes, you heard that right. He, or the store supervisor, tells us that we have low sales and that it's our fault. Honestly, I want to leave, but I don't have another job lined up, and the good in me thinks of my coworkers when I do finally leave. They still deal with his inability to properly run a store. What should I do? Okay, first off, I don't think you should think about your coworkers at all in this scenario, because sure, they're in this mess as well, but they're in it voluntarily just like you are. I understand you need the job, but trust me, this is not worth it. So if I was in your shoes, I would be finding a new job immediately. Like, these managers and supervisors sound like they suck so much. And as someone who's worked a job where literally there's not enough people to get stuff done, like, it seriously is such a nightmare, it's not even funny. You're always stressed out, you can never get anything done that you need to get done, and you're always just running at 1,000%. And then for him to turn around and be like, wow, we have low sales, it's your fault. Like, oh my god, no wonder people are quitting. Like, if you're gonna understaff a department and then complain because that department is underperforming, then you, the manager, are the problem, not the employees who are doing everything they can to keep up. So truly, in my opinion, you definitely need to find something else, and you need to do this sooner than later for you as opposed to anybody else. Because trust me, that job does not sound like a good time, and if you know what's good for you, you will try to find something better sooner than later. My awful, useless manager refuses to do his job and literally leaves all of us in a bind constantly and consistently. And after dealing with this for so long, I finally finally watched this guy get fired in a way that honestly he completely deserved, and I truly hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. So I work at a local restaurant in my town as a waiter, and in May of this year, our previous general manager, we'll call her Cherry for the sake of the story, had resigned due to her pregnancy and other personal life events. So it was about 3 to 4 months before we finally hired a new general manager, who I will call Jackson. Jackson seemed like a nice guy and everything, a little quiet and standoffish at first, which was a contrast from our bubbly and more outgoing manager Cherry, but completely understandable nonetheless, because he was in a whole new environment. Well, little did we all know, those wouldn't be the only contrast from Cherry. When I tell you guys that Jackson was a complete letdown, I really can't stress that enough. Here's some examples of just how he let us all down. For starters, he would constantly show up late, or not show up at all for his job without even calling the restaurant. Mind you, this is the same guy who is supposed to hold all of us employees below his authority to the same standard of communicating with your job. And he was also the same guy who scheduled all of our hours. And there were quite a few issues with this first problem. We were often led to wonder what in the world was going on with our general manager when he wouldn't arrive when scheduled. He would also often show up to work much later on in the day, or even the next day with a pitiful excuse if he even had one at all. One day he did not show up at all, and no one could get a hold of this guy by phone. He then showed up the next day and had the audacity to say something along the lines of, "Well, it doesn't matter why I was gone, it just matters that I'm here right now." And this to me is very reminiscent of the scene from the Brady Bunch movie, where the father always had some motivational quote that really wasn't saying anything at all. Jackson would also leave to go help his girlfriend, who supposedly worked at a shop around the corner from us, and sometimes not even let us know. Once, when this happened, only myself and one cook was there to run the entire restaurant. Luckily, we were not busy at all that day, but it's still the principle of what Jackson did to us. He then came back and nonchalantly said, "Oh yeah, I just had to help my girlfriend with a few things at her job, but I'm sure there were people at his girlfriend's job who could have helped her, but whatever, I guess." Jackson left before his shift was over with, without notifying any of us before another waitress, who we will call Sarah, even came into work. Sarah happened to be late that day and thankfully called us to let us know. I told her that I would let Jackson know, but I could not find him due to the lack of communication. Sometimes if you're late, you have to use a manager's card to clock in late. So when Sarah arrived, she was about to do this, but because Jackson was gone and none of us could find him, we all finally realized that he wasn't there. She had to call another shift manager by the name of Brenda and wait for her to come and clock her in. She had to wait maybe 2 to 3 hours to clock into her own job. And this guy would never apologize or anything like that for all of this. He would just come back to work whenever he pleased and just act like nothing was out of the ordinary. Another example is the fact that he did not work around other people's schedules when needed. Our last manager, Cherry, was good about working around other people's schedules, especially whenever we needed it. As long as we gave her notice and time, she was okay with it. But Jackson, on the other hand, absolutely did not. We had a big amount of new cooks and hosts that applied and got the job at our restaurant shortly after Jackson stopped in, and while they seemed good and promising, he didn't work around their schedules like he should have. So, if I remember correctly, all but 1 or 2 of our new staff almost quit immediately after joining. He would also order things that the restaurant did not need, while completely neglecting things that we did need. One time, our dishwasher was breaking down during rush hour, which slowed us down considerably. When another one of our shift managers by the name of Kaylin called in and asked for help, he somehow got out of our call where we needed help, stating that he needed more pancake batter when no one ever mentioned anything about that. He also proceeded to hang up on her and did not arrive to help us at all that day. Jackson also does not follow the dress code. For reference, us employees have a dress code to wear all black, but managers can wear whatever they want as long as they look professional. Well, one day, Jackson came in with some sweats and a hoodie on, and when another waitress by the name of Tara called him out for the double standard, he left to go home and never came back for the rest of the day. Also, his last day working there was a complete nightmare. Everything you could think of was going wrong on this morning. We had faulty equipment, as the dishwasher and some of the machines were just malfunctioning, and because of all of this, it was unfortunately taking a lot of tables around an hour to receive their food. Not to mention that this was also during the rush hour. Eventually, we had to put a hold on the doors and even pause seating for new guests because there was no way any of us could catch up to where we needed to be while still be expected to take on new customers. And to top it all off, Jackson of all people was in charge to manage this crap. Now, Jackson did his usual thing of not doing his job like he should, and he even had the nerve to try and boss other people around without doing much to help any of us. But eventually, he disappeared without notifying anyone. Another waitress, who we will call Abby, as well as myself, myself, needed help with something that only Jackson could have helped us with since he is a manager. So we looked around the restaurant and we simply could not find him. We then went outside into the parking lot to find him, but his car was nowhere to be found. During all of this, we had very upset customers who wanted to speak to the manager, but I had to be honest and tell them that we had no manager here with us because he was out there doing whatever it is that he does. And sure, that was probably unprofessional to say, but he was being very unprofessional and it was true. We then had to let the other staff know what happened, and Tara had to call Kaylin to notify her. By this point, Jackson had been written up many times for his previous incidents that I had talked about, but he had one last chance and he just now blew it. So Kaylin ended up calling him to fire him, but he decided to quit on the spot so that he couldn't be fired. So Kaylin had to step in to help for the rest of the day, meaning that there was no more Jackson. Jackson was fired over 2 months ago, and since then, Brenda has had to step up as the general manager, which honestly was the best choice, considering that she had worked at our restaurant for almost 20 years and had more experience at other restaurants in the past before that. And now that you know he was fired, here's 2 other things that I need to mention. For starters, he did not keep up with the bills and utilities of the restaurant. We all found this out after he quit, so it was between Kaylin and Brenda to step in and catch up on all of this. We also found out that after he quit, that he was fired from several other jobs as general manager before being hired by us. And I do not know how he managed to get hired at our restaurant, but he did. And this explains why he quit before we would fire him, so that he couldn't say that he was fired again. I also want to emphasize again that Cherry was a really good general manager. I think that she actually cared about her job and the employees, which is a rarity these days. So it was sad to see her leave. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Jackson at all. So that was the story of our entitled and useless previous general manager, Jackson. Nobody has ever seen him again, and I can only pray for whichever place hires him next. Wow, that guy's a piece of garbage. He literally left all of you out to dry so many times it's not even funny. For me, the worst part about it is the fact that he would not step up and do his job. Like, if this guy really is the general manager and he has responsibilities associated with his employees, then he needs to be there and do his job. It is tremendously unfair for everybody else at this job that has to deal with him not being there. Like, seriously, that is so annoying. Not to mention the fact that he would just leave work whenever he wanted to help out his girlfriend. It's like, I'm sorry, sir, do you have a second job somewhere else? Like, what is going on right now? There's no excuse for this. So honestly, for the sake of you and the people you work with, I'm really glad that you guys don't have to deal with Jackson anymore, because this guy sounded like a nightmare to deal with. My entitled coworker treats me specifically like garbage while still choosing to be friends with all of our other coworkers. And at this point, I'm seriously confused on what I should do about this, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a server at a steakhouse, and one day I took a double shift where I was host for the rest of the half. We had a dinner rush, and since there were 2 other hosts taking care of guests, I decided to help out with the servers and bartenders during the rush. One of the hosts was in training, and the other was very experienced, and given the circumstances, I asked the experienced host if she would be okay taking care of the rush with the trainee. She said, yeah, that's fine, this is nothing. And so I went off to do my thing. I go to the kitchen and I start helping servers with running food and getting bread and anything else they might need. I then start helping the bartender, who was very clearly behind on a lot. For reference, I'll call him Tony. Out of nowhere, Tony starts berating me with a rude tone. What are you doing? We don't need you back here, bro. There's a hostess by herself up there. Now, mind you, there's 2 hosts and the experienced one said she didn't need my help. Stunned in that moment, I go silent and I just go up there to check on the host desk. And guess what? They're completely fine. Later on, I confronted Tony and I told him politely, hey Tony, I appreciate you looking out for other workers, but what you're not going to do is talk to me that way. I've been helping you out all night through the rush, and I just found it disrespectful that you treat me this way. His response was to say, okay bro, alright. And this is all midway while I'm talking to him, just trying to brush me off. He then said to me, you're just trying to start stuff with me. I then tell him politely, no, I'm just telling you how you made me feel. He then just excuses me away like I was annoying him. Now, I barely stand up for myself, but I really felt tired of being a pushover. Typically, when someone calls me out, I accept it and read advice that standing up for yourself gets you the respect you deserve most of the time, but I couldn't be the more opposite. Since that encounter, Tony never says hello to me, despite me greeting him every time I walk in. I run his food when he's choked at the bar, and he never says thank you to me. He laughs and converses with anyone else, but despite me never being rude or nasty to him in my entire time working there, he never does that with me. So hopefully you get the picture. I genuinely don't know how to deal with this, and it's compounded by the fact that he's always on the same shift as me. I have OCD and ADHD, so it's hard to stop running this over in my head. So I need to ask, has anyone else had a similar situation like this? How do you mentally go about this? Do I stay the better man and treat him with respect? Or do I just ignore him and stop helping someone who doesn't show gratitude or even acknowledge my existence? What should I do? Honestly, if I was in your shoes, because trust me, I've been there before, I would stop trying to talk to him altogether. I know you probably feel like maybe if you prove yourself, you'll gain his respect, but I'm here to tell you that Tony doesn't care about you. He doesn't like you now, and he's not gonna like you tomorrow. And fortunately for you, there's nothing you can do about that. And I say fortunately because at least you know where Tony stands. You know that he's a piece of garbage, and you do not need to waste your energy on trying to appeal to him. Truly, this is a situation where no matter how hard you try, someone is always gonna hate you for literally no reason. You could be the shiniest apple in the bunch, but guess what? Some people just don't like apples. And that's not a you problem, that most definitely is a Tony problem. So something that I've done when I've dealt with coworkers who act like this is that I just completely cut off any unnecessary communication with them. When they betray my innate trust I might have in them in this way, then I immediately just shut them out and I say, okay, we're just coworkers. I'm not going to be your friend, and trust me, we are never talking outside of what's necessary. Because Tony's behavior is completely unacceptable, and you do not deserve to deal with that in the slightest. My toxic fiance is constantly putting me down for losing my job, making fun of the fact that I'm unemployed, while also making sure I understand that I'm useless. But now, even after waiting several months to finally get a new job, I still feel incredibly awful, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was in a decent job. It paid me decently well, and I loved what I did. I could sustain myself without depending on anyone. For a bit of background, I come from a broken home. There's a lot of alcohol and mistreatment. There was name calling. I mean, honestly, you name it, and I dealt with it, which basically meant that I never wanted to stay home. I struggled through my college days, surviving on one meal a day. Sometimes, if my friends would share their meal, I would eat with them, but otherwise, I just went for a walk. In fact, I used to walk every day up and down to college just to save money on the bus fare. Somehow, I got through graduation, and with some hard work and luck, I got into Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai, India, and I completed all of my studies on scholarships. So, coming back to my family, I wanted to move out, and as soon as I got a decent job, I moved to Bangalore. I simply couldn't bear the home environment anymore, and while I was in Bangalore, I regained my health and my career. Finally, I could focus and excel at my job without much distraction. All this while, I never got into any relationships. I wanted to focus on my career and seek out God. And then, one fine day, I got a text from a girl on Instagram, and at the time, I just ignored it. I never really believed in online love, but she was insistent, so I gave in. We then started talking, and soon enough, we were in love. Moreover, by then, I was 33 years old, and since I didn't come from a good family, no family ever wanted to marry their daughter to me, so under pressure, I thought, why not just give it a try? We were in a long-term relationship, and then we finally decided to meet up. Well, we eventually met, and trust me, on the very next day, she started fighting me. And at the time, I thought all women are moody and perhaps nothing to worry about. We stayed in a long-term relationship, but kept meeting often, until one final day that she kicked me in anger, and I was honestly shocked. But as much as I was angry and upset, I just let it go. Then this happened again, but this time it was in public and she tore my t-shirt. She is the kind of person whose mood would fluctuate every single minute. And sure, this is a bit of an exaggeration, but I think you get my point. She asked me for forgiveness, and eventually I just gave in, and I guess we were back in love again. And in the meanwhile, we were also engaged. And since I didn't have a family, it was just an exchange ring. Also, I thought it might be wise to meet her parents, and it was the right thing to do. And so I met them, and they are a very beautiful family with her mom and dad, and they came from a well-to-do family. But as soon as I got back to Bangalore after meeting her parents, that Wednesday I lost my job. Me, as well as other coworkers, were just laid off. To add insult to injury, the very next week after being laid off, my father was hospitalized, meaning that I had to go back to the family which I absolutely hated. They never respected us, and now, all of a sudden, they were dependent on their children. Well, long story short, he passed away, and for about 2 months, I wasn't able to focus on my interviews. It was a very tough period in my life, and I would have loved to receive some support from my now fiance. Now, you won't believe me, but right after my dad passed away, in the next half an hour, my fiance started a fight with me, saying to me, "Screw you, you're so irresponsible." And all of this right after my father passed away, and she only fought with me all because I didn't give her time the day that my father died. When she said this, I was literally shocked. She literally just kept swearing at me and saying "screw you" over and over again. Once I got back to Bangalore, she would be sweet some days and then really cruel the other days. And I am purposefully using the word cruel. Like literally incredibly cruel. She kept calling me and reminding me that I'm unemployed whenever we fought, and she would even call me unemployed even when we didn't fight. She would say things like I was unemployed because I was cursed by God. When I had interviews from good companies, I wouldn't do well because I was so low in my confidence. But even then, she wouldn't care. Just before my interview, she kept calling me useless and unemployed, and how I had not gotten a job and all this other garbage. And I don't even want to get into the guys she used to talk to behind my back. We fought like cats and dogs, but she just kept lying, and I honestly don't even want to go there. But anyways, by God's grace, today I somehow managed to find a job after a wait of about 6 months. But at this point, I don't know what to do about my fiance because this entire situation is incredibly discouraging. Wow, your fiance sounds like a terrible person. And I think I can say that pretty confidently because the way she was acting towards you being unemployed, as well as the fact that you were grieving the loss of your dad, like all of that mixed together is so toxic. What kind of future wife is gonna treat you like that? Like off the rip, she's treating you like garbage and she's saying, oh wow, you're unemployed. You need to get a job. You're so useless. Like that is awful. I can't imagine someone treating me like that in like my lowest moment of my life. Not to mention the fact that she's basically attacking you in public. Like you're talking about how she kicked you in the leg and how she tore your shirt up in public. Like what is going on right now? That is not okay. This doesn't sound like a loving fiance who wants to spend the rest of their life with you, but if anything, it sounds like someone who is intentionally mistreating you and is not going to be a good lifelong partner in the slightest. So truly, I hope this all works out for you because it sounds like you've had a rough life altogether, and I really think that your current fiance is only going to make your life incredibly harder. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my brother pass his exam, all because of the way he treated me 5 years ago? Because right now I'm being called a jerk for not wanting to step up and help my family out, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I have a 20-year-old brother who traveled recently to another country to study medicine. Due to some circumstances, he couldn't study in the same country we are in, and he was also 2 years late, so he had to travel outside the country, which was much more expensive than it would have been if he had just stayed here. His visa for that country took longer than expected to come out as well, which caused him to be 3 weeks later than his peers, and in these 3 weeks, they were given an insane amount of lectures. So not only did he come late, but now he is almost a month behind in his studies. On top of that, he had to take an extra week looking for an apartment because the agency he traveled with screwed him over. Now for a bit of background, my family is nothing less of dysfunctional. None of me or my siblings like each other, and we just don't have that bond other siblings have. We are more likely to screw each other over, if not leave each other alone. There is 6 of us, and at this point, we are just roommates. We are forced to live together because of money, and we were raised by parents that don't know what love means, so it's no surprise that we grew up this way, just resenting each other for existing. For me and this brother, the relationship is pretty dysfunctional. We mostly stay away from each other, but during my last 2 years in university, we had to move to a smaller house due to financial issues, and there was only one room that was quiet enough for me to concentrate and study, and it happened to be the only room with air conditioning. Well, my brother overtook that room, and every time I would simply ask him to just let me sit in the room, he would yell at me. He would close the AC, kick me off the double bed when I'm just sitting at the edge of it, and even one time crash my head against the wall. Back then, he was having a mental breakdown because he wanted to study outside with all of his being, but my father refused due to, again, financial issues. He was lashing out and treating everybody horribly, so nobody was able to do anything. I will never forget how he treated me, and how because of him, the only choice I had was to study outside in the middle of the night alone with mosquitoes around. There is far more other things that he did to me, but this post will become too long, so I'm just gonna get to the issue. Because he was 4 weeks late, and he's also studying medicine like me, he was struggling and calling my mom crying about being unable to cover all the topics before his exam in just a few days. Well, my mom wanted me to start video calling him and basically teach him everything since we are in the same field, but my first reaction was absolutely not. And I then reminded her how he treated me back when I was a student, while also mentioning that I have my own exam to worry about. She then got mad at me and called me heartless and mean, and that I'm holding a grudge against him in a time when he was not mentally well. But I don't believe that. I stood my ground at first, but now everyone in my family is calling me a heartless jerk, which is really making me feel conflicted. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. The fact that anybody's trying to dismiss your brother's behavior and almost brush it under the rug under the guise of like, oh, he was struggling mentally, that in my opinion is so unfair it's not even even funny. It's also incredibly toxic. I know plenty of people who have mental health issues who don't act this way. So for your mom to be like, oh, but come on, what about him? What is he gonna do? It's like, wait a second, where was their support when you were going through this? He literally made your life a living nightmare when you were trying to study. So why should you step up and suddenly be like the person to save him when he needs help? Like, that's not fair at all. That really is not fair in the slightest. So no, I don't blame you for not wanting to help him out because your brother sounds incredibly entitled. I screamed at my husband over his hobbies, and now he has completely changed. And at this point, I don't know how to fix it. Here's what happened. I'm 27 years old, and I've been married to my 28-year-old husband for about 4 years now. And he has a room where he keeps all of his hobbies. His sim racing, aviation setups, his soccer analysis tools, his Lego sets, his music production equipment. Basically, it's his sanctuary. He is super analytical and loves writing down and dissecting things, whether that's sports or politics. He is slightly on the spectrum and very introverted, so he doesn't have close friends. I'm really the only person he shares everything with. He's always inviting me into his space to be part of his interests. Now, I love him and I appreciate that he wants to include me, but sometimes I just need some time for myself. Well, recently I snapped at him. I yelled at him saying some hurtful things that I didn't mean, like how his interests bore me, that he needs to get a social life, and even questioned why I married him. I regret every word, but my anger got the best of me, and I couldn't control it in that moment. Ever since then, he has completely changed. He stopped spending time in his room, moved to sleeping on the couch, and barely talks to me. He even ignored our usual tradition of watching our home nation's soccer team play, something that he would never skip before. Instead, he was working on his laptop, breaking our no work at home rule. When I asked him about it, he said he didn't care about the game and mentioned that he should be more like his father, who is a workaholic and whom my husband idolizes. He even added by saying, I don't blame him for getting divorced at that age. I've apologized multiple times, but he just says, it's okay, maybe you're right, and then shuts down any attempts I make to talk about his interests. And now I'm terrified that he's considering divorce. I know I messed up, but I don't know how to rebuild trust and help him feel valued and loved again. I don't want to lose him, but I'm unsure how to approach this and make amends. What should I do? Okay, this is a really messed up story because the original poster absolutely messed up big time. They literally snapped at this guy over his hobbies and then tried to be like, oh wait, I'm sorry, I take it all back. And honestly, that cat is out of the bag. There's no way you're getting it back in, especially with you saying, oh, I wonder why I even married you in the first place. It's like, yeah, I wonder why you married him. You had to have known that these were his hobbies, right? Like, I'm pretty sure this came up during the dating phase, but now seemingly out of nowhere, you're like, wow, you need to get a life. All of your hobbies are boring to me and I don't know why I married you. Like, that is so hurtful. I don't blame him for being like, yeah, I just don't care anymore. He's already sleeping on the couch and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna work all the time. So truly, what you said to this guy was so unacceptable, and unfortunately, I don't think you can ever take it back, because you didn't just criticize his hobbies, you also degraded him as a person, and that is absolutely toxic. Am I the jerk for hesitating to loan my girlfriend's brother $2,000, all because my money situation was really tight, and I couldn't drop that money right away, because right now she is guilt-tripping me hard, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. My girlfriend and I have been together for about 6 months now. We were long distance for about 2 months, all before I quickly moved out of my home state over to hers. I work remote and make very good money, well into the 6 figures. She had a full-time job that required her to be in the office, and her state had more favorable costs of living, so it all just kind of made sense. After living together for 2 months, she quit her main job to focus on building up her business. I told her that I would support her through the transition, and she's been doing great and building up a substantial client base for herself. Now I pay the entirety of the rent on the house, as well as all the groceries, and I buy all the furniture and pay for anything and everything we need around the house. I even gave her one of my credit cards, and I let her use it on whatever she wants. Well, a few days ago, she asked me to loan her brother $2,000 so he can make his monthly house payment. He is going through a bad divorce with a kid involved and is in the middle of a career change. I've only met him once, but he seems like an honest guy, and while I make a lot of money, I don't come from money. In the past, I was horrible with my finances and only recently started getting my stuff together. Yesterday, I explained to her that I need to make sure I have enough liquidity to cover all necessary expenses, especially over the next few weeks, and that I wouldn't be able to dish out $2,000 without making sure that we wouldn't be in a tough situation, and that I'm uncomfortable with her asking me for money for her family, being that we're still technically in a new relationship. Well, when I said that, she stormed off and said that she needed to call some clients and figure out how she was going to get a line of credit to cover the loan. I saw how unhappy she was as she stormed away, so I just Venmo'd her the $2,000. I then texted her and I told her that I sent her the money for her brother, but she texted a reply by saying, why would would you Venmo it? That takes days to transfer. And then she stormed out of the house. She then got in her car, drove off, and ignored all of my phone calls. When she came back home 30 minutes later, she told me I was inconsiderate of her emotions and that she can tell that I don't want to help. She then guilted me after I already paid her and told me that she had seen real hardship in her life and that I had not. She told me that my worldview is stingy and that she's concerned that I don't jump to help family financially no matter what. Then she started talking about how money isn't everything and that I should have made more of an effort to console her during this. I explained politely that her brother is not my family and that I have financial responsibilities that I need to secure before putting myself out of pocket and potentially into a stressful position. Well, she just threw my income back in my face as if I should feel ashamed for what I spent years building up for myself. Now, I do love her, but part of me worries that she may be taking advantage of me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Asking for $2,000 for a brother you barely know, like that is a big ask. That is a huge request in my opinion. I don't care how much money you make. And the fact that she's guilt tripping you about it, even though you did pay her after you saw how upset she was, like that is really toxic. That is not okay. And also, you are 100% right. You've only been in a relationship with her for about 6 months. With all the things you have on your plate financially, for her to be like, wow, I can't believe you wouldn't step up for family. I really feel like she's reaching in this moment and it's just not fair for you at all. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and the fact that you would do this in the first place, in my opinion, is wildly inappropriate. Last night, I got the chance to ban an entitled Karen from our bar, as she was disruptive and treating the staff like absolute garbage. Things got so bad that I nearly called the police just to get this Karen out of our establishment, and I truly hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so I serve, bartend, and manage a small family restaurant. Last night, I was managing, and before my GM left, she pointed out a woman at the bar with a red sweater and said that if she was disrespectful one more time, then I need to kick her out. Well, not even 5 minutes after my GM went home, red sweater lady snapped at my 19-year-old bartender. So I calmly asked her to be respectful towards the staff. Red sweater lady told me to put my head between my legs and that apparently she pays all of our salaries. And I'm like, ma'am, bartenders make $5 an hour. That is not nearly enough to put up with her garbage. Essentially, she was mad that her order was taking forever. It was 26 minutes and the kitchen was slammed with to-go orders because it is a Friday night after all. It was obvious that this lady had the thought process of an adolescent and the entitlement of a Karen. I told the other bartender to print her tab, as she is definitely getting kicked out. I told the kitchen to put her food in to-go boxes, brought it back to the bar to her where she was continuing to argue with the bartenders, and finally I just picked up the phone and I called the police. While the line was ringing, she finally stood up, talking garbage all the way out the door. It was probably a 15-minute ordeal from beginning to end, trying to get this lady just to leave. As she was leaving, I let her know that she was banned and not to come back. As we were watching the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight later in the night, our regulars who work at a restaurant down the street let us know that she's also banned there as well. I kept our general manager in the loop as everything was happening, who also ended up telling our owner, and the owner fully supports my decision on banning her. I mean, I should not have to call the police to get someone to leave, and we certainly don't tolerate verbal mistreatment of staff or any other guest. My general manager even texted me to ban her right away when I told her I was calling the police to get her to leave. I've been checking the Google reviews every few hours just waiting for her tirade to pop up. But if this post should find her or someone that she knows, treat people better. And I'll also take a raise for putting up with you, since apparently you pay all of our salaries. Oh man, I'll never understand people who act like this. You mean to tell me you're going to a restaurant on a Friday night and you're gonna sit there and complain that your food is late? Like seriously, some common sense will really get you far, lady. There's literally no reason to scream at the staff. They haven't done anything wrong. In fact, they're the people who are being paid to take care of you. Also, since we're talking about payment, I cannot stand when people try to pull off this notion of like, oh, I pay your salaries. It's like, what in the world are you talking about? Showing up every other Friday night to get drunk at a bar doesn't suddenly mean that you're bankrolling this entire establishment. Like, that is such a sorry excuse for such bad behavior. But also, I love the fact that your managers and the owner all encourage you to ban this lady, because I've worked at jobs where literally the manager is a giant pushover and they'll be like, no, don't ban him, we need the business. And then they turn this against you in some kind of way and be like, wow, why'd you upset the customer? And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? If you tolerate this behavior, then it will always happen. So instead of blaming me for this lady's awful behavior, grow a backbone and allow me to ban these people. Like, this really makes me jealous. I wish I had this when I worked these types of jobs, because having a spineless manager is almost worse than having an entitled Karen. So good for you for banning this lady, because this honestly was incredibly satisfying. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that I don't want to loan money to her family any longer? Because right now, my wife's mother keeps asking us for money, and at this point, point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife and I have been together for several years. Her family hasn't made good decisions when it comes to money, and I don't mean to judge people, and I just say live your life the way that you want to live it. Well, several months ago, her mom came to us asking to borrow $1,000. My wife and I talked it over, and I told her I don't like to loan money to family as it usually leads to bad feelings. Now, it is her mom, and I know it was hurting her that her mom was asking for money, so we decided that the money was a gift and that we didn't want the money back. Well, 2 months later, she needed another $600, and at this point, I am pretty annoyed. This is the slippery slope. After much back and forth, we said okay, but this time it was a loan, and she would start paying $200 a month starting in October, and my wife and I agreed that this was the last time we would pay out. Well, fast forward to last Tuesday, and I get home and my wife says her mom is in a panic and that they will be evicted from their lot if they don't come up with $1,600 by today, and that's also in addition to the $1,600 we had already given. Well, I said that I was sorry and that I would help come up with some ideas, but I told my wife I was no longer willing to loan or give out money as it obviously isn't fixing her mom's financial issues. So am I being unfair by putting my foot down and saying enough is enough and that we cannot be responsible? We are saving for a down payment on a house. I know it's her mom, but I feel if we don't set boundaries, it will end up damaging my relationship with my wife. I'm no saint or victim, so please don't read it that way. We all make mistakes and get into tough spots. But with that being said, my first responsibility is to our family unit, namely me, my wife, and my 2 kids. What should I do? No, I don't blame you for a second for putting your foot down. It's obvious your wife's mom is not good with her money and she is using you as some kind of ATM machine. And that is not fair. Like, that really is not fair for you or anybody else in your family. Because I can understand if this was like a one-time thing. If it really was like a once-in-a-blue moon request, then sure, I'll give you a couple $100. I don't really care. But it's the fact that this keeps happening that to me is like a giant red flag. And yes, this is your wife's mom, but at the end of the day, it is incredibly unfair for you two to have to pay for all of her mistakes. My entitled brother gets anything that he wants, while I'm treated like the black sheep of the family, constantly kicked to the curb, while my brother doesn't have to lift a finger and work for anything. But after dealing with this and my brother's temper tantrums and outbursts anytime he doesn't get what he wants, I seriously feel like I'm at my breaking point because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of reference, my family is a tight-knit, good-loving Christian family. However, I am feeling betrayed due to my younger brother taking advantage of my parents' kindness. He gets anything he wants pretty much, while I have to work my butt off for it. I saved up for 5 years to buy a lawnmower to earn more money and bought my very own VR headset for about $300 a year later. However, my parents manipulated me into letting my brother use it, and then he broke it. I was devastated beyond belief. I told my parents that he needed to pay for it, and they initially agreed, but instead they just let him off with a talking to, and my parents bought me a new one. To add salt to the wound, they bought him a better headset with guards and extra battery for $800 for his birthday, while I was told anything above $100 would have to be my own money. I fixed up a computer I bought over the course of a year, and my parents got my brother a brand new PC for nearly $1,000 spontaneously a few weeks later. If I buy a phone, my brother gets a phone with unlimited data and an arcade subscription. I'll pay $60 for a World of Warcraft subscription, but my brother gets it for free and never uses it. If I buy a game, he gets the same game for free. If I get a new monitor, he gets a new monitor for free. It might not be so bad if it weren't for the fact that he also does no housework. My parents help some, but a lot of it gets pushed to me that my brother is supposed to do. My brother got a dog, which I'm allergic to, by the way, and my parents justified it because they gave me a beat-up old Ford Ranger that still doesn't work a year later. I had to get an allergy test, which put me out of school for 2 weeks, and now I have to make up a ton of schoolwork, keep up with Invisalign, do most of the indoor and outdoor chores, but still my parents complain that I'm in my room too much. And this is despite the fact that my brother was failing 3 classes with a 0% for months, and yet he gets to stay in his room on VR all day. I also get sick very often for having an awful immune system. The only way I'm allowed to stay home is if I throw up or if I'm in severe pain, but he gets to stay home if he has a runny nose. I had to stop doing Boy Scouts due to stress and replaced it with more JROTC, but my parents let him quit Boy Scouts with nothing replacing it. He also was allowed to quit Bible study on Wednesdays as well. He throws a toddler-like tantrum of stomping around, yelling, crying, and slamming doors when he is told to do anything other than what he wants to do. My parents justify this bullcrap by saying they're preparing him to be tougher in the real world. I try to respect their wishes and have never even talked back, let alone argue. However, I've had the last straw today as I'm being told that I have to move my PC AC out of my clean room into the allergy-infested basement where it was originally until my brother got a dog. They say they're doing this so they can monitor my screen time, and this is while I can still hear my brother in his room on his VR. As an introvert, my last bastion of solitude is just some models and books in a small room, since my phone isn't allowed in here, but it is in my brother's room. I'm at a complete loss of what to do. My parents aren't classic idiots who mistreat me, but instead they are fairly reasonable people, except when it comes to my brother. Words have more of an effect on me than they do on him, but my brother just gets angry and storms off. I'm fairly certain my parents believe my introverted nature is something that needs to be fixed rather than adapted to. My brother is a party-loving jokester just like my parents, that I'm guessing is what my parents believe I should be. My parents treat me like a disappointment, trying to eke more out of me so I can be better in their own eyes. But I never get my way. I just sort of compromise between what I want and what they want. Like I said earlier, my computer returns to the basement today. My brother still gets to keep his stuff in his room, and off to the curb I go. I might post about my introvert issues elsewhere on here, but for now, I honestly don't know what to do. Yeah, your parents are pieces of garbage. They're clearly playing favorites with your younger brother, and that really is not fair. For starters, you haven't done anything wrong. If anything, it seems like you've done everything for yourself because your parents have just straight up failed you. Like, you are not at fault in this situation, so please remember that moving forward. But also, in my opinion, this really will make you the stronger sibling, as opposed to your brother being tougher, as your parents were trying to imply. Like, that kid is gonna have such a disadvantage in life when he becomes of age, because he is just not gonna know what to do with his life. He's gonna be completely lost, he's not gonna have any life skills, and the blame for this is gonna fall squarely on your parents' shoulders and not yours. So truly, I hope this all gets better sooner than later, because the way your parents are treating you, in my opinion, is incredibly unfair. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for arguing with my parents after they bought brand new windows and doors for my house and changed them out without asking me first? Because right now I feel like they crossed a big boundary and I'm still incredibly frustrated with them. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female and I got into a huge argument with my parents today because they just decided by themselves to change all of my windows and doors in the house that I bought. And no, they don't live with me. And they did this without even asking me once what I wanted design-wise or if I even wanted it in the first place. But it's already done and they've ordered everything and things will be delivered next week. They told me I'm an ungrateful kid who doesn't know anything about life and I should just close my mouth and take it since they are paying for it anyways. But again, I didn't ask them to, nor did I want to change the doors at this moment since I'm taking out all the floors and the bathroom tiles, which is super messy and dusty, meaning that to me the old doors are great since I don't have to be careful with them. They also threw all the doors out today already, and when I came to the house, all the doors were inside the garbage container. They think they can blow all this money into my face and I should just accept it. I feel bad that I got mad with them since money-wise this is a very generous gift, but on the other side, they are way over the line. So am I the jerk for freaking out on my parents? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Oh man, I would be so furious if my family did this. Like, this is such a massive breach of trust, it's not even funny. The original poster basically explained that yes, in their family, it's normal to have keys to everybody else's houses, and that's how they were able to like change the doors out altogether. But hopefully, all of that changes today. Because if I was in your shoes, I would be changing the locks, and I would be like, okay, you're never doing that again. Because the original poster in this story is 100% right. Their parents are way over the line here. They can't make decisions on what you want your house to look like. They can't just walk up and be like, oh, we gotta change these doors out. Here's all this money, you better be grateful for it. Like, that's crazy entitled behavior. Because at the end of the day, this is your home. It's something that you bought, meaning that you call the shots on how it looks. And the fact that they overstep their boundaries in this way, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. Am I the jerk for refusing to support my friend's fitness influencer career, all because I didn't want to carry her product to her every time I visited her? Here's what happened. Okay, so I have this friend who decided to become a fitness influencer, and she got into it because her now ex-boyfriend had a fitness business with a decent following. She joined his company, and although I was a bit doubtful about this whole endeavor in the beginning, she was actually doing incredibly well. She gained a lot of followers, and she even entered a bodybuilding competition and did great, and I was really proud of her. She was sponsored by the same brands that worked with her boyfriend, all because of her association with his company. Sadly though, her boyfriend was a cheating piece of garbage, so they broke up and all her sponsorships dropped her because she was no longer under his brand umbrella, and I honestly think it was so unfair. She was the image of the brand for months, and they just dropped her like that. Fast forward to now, now, and she has been struggling, but she managed to land a sponsorship from a smaller local supplement company in our home country. The problem is, I don't live there anymore. I moved to the United Kingdom not too long ago, and the brand she was previously sponsored by delivered here, but this one doesn't. Her solution is that she wants me to order her supplements, ship them to my family back home, and then lug them back with me every time I visit, which, to be fair, is every couple of months or so. Now, on top of that, I only buy vegan protein powder. I hate whey, and I have tried it, but it honestly just does not taste good to me. All of this to say is that I never understood why people say that vegan protein powder sucks, because both the previous brand and the one I get are amazing. Well, now I do. The brand she's sponsored by is awful, like truly an undrinkable chalky mess, even in shakes, and it's also way more expensive. I tried explaining this to her, but she keeps bringing it up and guilt-tripping me about how she's struggling right now, and that she really needs my support. I get that she's having a hard time, but the hassle of doing this every 2 months just seems like too much, and we're talking planning the deliveries, dealing with the shipping cost, cramming extra tubes of powder into my already full luggage, or worse, paying for extra baggage. She is one of my best friends, and part of me wonders if I should just suck it up and do it. But at the same time, this would impact me because, like I said, I eat this stuff every single day, and I love my food, and I'm also not in the best financial situation. But realistically, it would be about 10 more euros a month. So would I be the jerk if I said no to this? What should I do? Okay, honestly, in my personal opinion, I think what your friend is asking you is a little bit overboard. Like, I'm really sorry she's going through a hard time, but for her to expect you to be a pack meal for her vegan protein powder, like that in my opinion is just a little bit too overboard, and I really think that is something that's completely unreasonable. Like, it is not your responsibility to make sure she is successful. You don't have any stake in her career, and the fact that she's trying to put this on you is really just kind of weird in my opinion. I know if this was me, I would say straight up, look, I'm really sorry and I love that you're trying to do this, but I cannot do this for you anymore. Like, she needs to find a better option for getting this stuff over to her, because this really is putting you out in a weird way. So no, you wouldn't be the jerk for turning your friend down, because what she's requesting of you, in my opinion, is incredibly weird. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that my family won't be coming home for Thanksgiving this year? Because right now, she is blowing this way out of proportion, and at this point, I feel incredibly guilty and I don't know what to do. So I'm a 24-year-old female, and I moved in with my 26-year-old female fiance in June. Before this move, I've always lived in my hometown where my parents live, but now we live about 2 hours away. Before I moved in with my partner, my 5-year-old daughter and I have always spent holidays with my parents. My partner would drive up when she could, depending on her work schedule and the road conditions. But this year, my partner and I decided to stay home for Thanksgiving for a multitude of reasons. The first of which is because we want to begin our own traditions as a family in our first home together. The second of which is because of my partner's work schedule. She will be working every day from November 25th through December 7th, with the exception of Thanksgiving Day. I'm also making her staff a full meal to bring in on Black Friday, and I will need time to prep for it. The third reason is that I've reached a point in my life where I believe I should not do whatever I'm told by my mother, and that I need to do what I want to do. It was very difficult for me to come out to my parents, and almost harder to move away from them. For reference, my parents were awful towards me. They kicked me out as a minor, and I spent many holidays homeless and alone. Once we reconnected, I've done everything to make sure they don't discard me again, and my mother has never apologized for anything she has ever done to me. I've also never made plans on holidays because I know that they want me there. However, they never check if I do have plans in the first place. Well, tonight, me, my mother, and my daughter were on a FaceTime call just catching up. My mother said that she would see us in a couple of weeks for Thanksgiving, but I told her that we were not coming, and when I said that, she was shocked. I told her that my fiance had to work, and that I was making food for her staff the next day, and with all the road conditions, it just seemed like a lot. Well, unfortunately, she was immediately upset, and said she bought things for my daughter, and that if we weren't going to come to her, then she was going to come to us with my father. She then began bawling and hung up the call with me. She then yelled at my father, saying that it was his fault we were not coming, and he must have done something to upset us. She also asked my sister if she upset me, and eventually I began receiving calls from each family member asking if I was mad at them or even just what happened. At this point, I was bawling my eyes out, as I had never really set boundaries before with my mother, and I really did feel guilty. My fiance and I talked about it and decided to cave in because I could not handle the stress. I then called my mom to apologize, and she did not answer my call. I then sent her a long text message where I apologized profusely multiple times, explained that I was not upset with anyone, and that if they would still have us, we would love to go. It's now been 6 hours, and she has not responded to my text message. Now, I do understand I shouldn't should have let her know about this much sooner, but it was very difficult for me to tell her, which also led to me avoiding the topic until she brought it up. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and honestly, I really think your mom is playing you in this situation. Like, sure, maybe she is upset, but she's using this as a catalyst to basically turn the family against you. Like, she's only telling everybody about this to be like, did you make my daughter upset? She is so mad she's not coming to Thanksgiving. Like, she's only doing that to make you feel bad. Not because she's actually that upset, but because you're not giving in to something that she's demanding. So now she's making this everybody else's business, which in effect is negatively affecting you. Like, let's not forget the way your parents treated you. They kicked you out of the house when you were a minor, and you had to spend holidays alone and homeless. Like, that absolutely still holds some weight here, because it sounds like your mom is incredibly manipulative, and the way she's reacting to you saying no is a perfect example of that. So no, you're not the jerk, and honestly, if she's not gonna respond after 6 hours, then I would be like, okay, well, we're not going anymore. Like, that's what I would do. I can't speak for your situation, but I really think you have every right to stand up for yourself, because your mom is being incredibly dishonest with you, and you and your family do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to help out my parents, who quite literally have gone broke because of their terrible financial decisions? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, my parents have a long history of terrible financial and money-related decisions. Growing up, I was led to believe we were essentially poor and scraping by. Asking to participate in school-related or other activities that required money was always a resounding no. I started working at a young age, bought my own car and insurance, etc., and everything I had as an adolescent I earned myself. As I got older, I realized both my parents had decent paying jobs, money was coming in, and they were even putting some money away for retirement, despite the impression they gave me. Around the time I left to live on my own, they started spending well above their means. Long vacations to tropical destinations, new cars every single year, they even bought a boat. They also purchased several timeshares, as well as got involved in multi-level marketing and these get-rich-quick type of schemes. Now, to afford it, they repeatedly refinanced their home. They were resetting the mortgage and taking out equity. They would also open up credit cards and transfer balances around to get promotional rates, all without paying down the debt. Now, the frustrating part is that over the years, they would ask me for advice about various financial decisions or a new scheme they found out about. I would take my time to research and explain why I didn't think it was a good idea, but in every single case, they ignored my advice and did whatever they wanted. Well, this is what brings me to the point of this post. They called me not too long ago and proceed to tell me that all their money is gone. They are completely broke. They explained that over the last several years, they've been emptying out their retirement accounts and putting it in a so-called retirement fund that was run by a good friend. Well, it turns out that this fund was a Ponzi scheme, and just like all other Ponzi schemes, it eventually collapsed. I've gone through the full gamut of emotions ever since they told me. I'm angry that they decided to hide this fund from me for years, most likely because they knew I would tell them something wasn't right about it, how they bought into this premise of unrealistic returns, even with all of the red flags. They had no reservations asking me for financial assistance. Even though they are retired, they still have a mortgage, which honestly, there's no surprise there. They then floated the idea of me paying their mortgage for them, but without providing me any equity in return. So I decided not to help them. I feel like they've never taken my advice, were excessively frugal when I was young, and even if I did help them, they would probably find a way to squander it. So am I the jerk in this situation for not wanting to help out my broke parents? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here. This really is their own fault. For starters, they didn't provide anything for you as a kid. Like, I can understand you needing to buy your own stuff and work for your own belongings and stuff like that, but this situation seems way more extreme than it should have been. Like, seriously, they had the money, but it sounds like they just wanted to use it for themselves. And the fact that they fell for multi-level marketing schemes and get-rich-quick schemes, that is so unbelievably stupid. There's no excuse for that. How do you possibly look at that and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make so much money off of this? Especially with multi-level marketing. That stuff never works out, and more times than not, it's just a pyramid scheme. But for them to also put their money into a retirement fund for a good friend, that's really stupid as well. I don't know about you, but if I'm retiring, I'm not gonna let some friend take care of it. Why not go somewhere reputable that's actually gonna take care of you? So no, I don't think you're the jerk for stepping aside and being like, nope, I'm not gonna help you. Because throughout your entire life, they have never listened to you, and this entire situation is quite literally their own fault. Am I the jerk for not coming home during the day to let my boyfriend's dog out while I'm trying to finish my thesis for college? Because right now, he's saying that I have no other obligations and that I need to do this, despite the fact that I am so unbelievably busy. Because right now, I'm incredibly frustrated and I seriously honestly don't know what to do. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for about 3.5 years, and we've been living together for about a year and a half in this apartment with one other roommate. My boyfriend got a dog around the time that we met, and I love him so much. I take care of the dog every morning because my boyfriend doesn't wake up early enough, but we both leave for the day at around 7:30 in the morning. I'm in my 3rd semester of my master's program, and my advisor expects a first draft of my thesis in 3 weeks, also that I can graduate on time in May. I work best in my office where I have a second monitor and space to spread out research materials. I also have ADHD, and I do take medication, so I'm most productive in long, uninterrupted blocks of time before evening hours. Now, previously, I could stay home late or come home early from school to help with the dog, and my boyfriend's old job was only 15 minutes away from the apartment, so he could come home for lunch and do it, and sometimes even our roommate would let the dog out at about 3 o'clock. Well, ever since October, my boyfriend started a new job 30 minutes away, and I'm now pulling 12-hour days, all packed with classes, teaching, grading, and my thesis, and this has all led to arguments about the dog's care. For example, today, I plan to work on my thesis all day in my office since I have no meetings, labs, or classes. However, as I was leaving, my boyfriend told me that I needed to at least come home once during the day to let the dog out. I reminded him that it takes me 30 minutes to commute each way, and we're talking 15 to 20 minutes of walking to my car, plus a 10-minute drive, and that I work best with uninterrupted blocks of time. Well, he accused me of deliberately avoiding responsibility and said that I should help because I had no other obligations. I told him that I am happy to take care of the dog when I can, but that he shouldn't expect me to take care of him more than I actually can. I already take the dog out every morning at around 7 o'clock in the morning, but that leaves a long gap until our roommate comes home at 3 o'clock p.m. While I feel bad about that, I cannot afford delays in my thesis timeline. If I do not graduate on time, we'll have to renew our lease, and I might end up paying for 2 leases if I can't get a job in this city. And trust me, I've been searching for months, and there aren't many options in my field here. I've talked to him about paying for a dog walker or paying our roommate to take him out every day, but he is strongly against those ideas, even though he just got a raise. I think he sees this as a test of my commitment to the relationship, even though we both have said that we want to get married. The icing on the cake is that I've always wanted a cat, and my plan was to always get one after I graduated. However, he said that I can't get one, so he expects me to take time out of my studies to take care of his dog, but yet he won't let me get my own furry friend? So truly, am I the jerk for refusing to come home during the day to take care of his dog while I'm literally trying to finish up my schooling? What should I do? No, this is not your problem. Honestly, the fact that he's trying to ship this on your shoulders, in my opinion, is super weird. This is his dog, right? He does know that. Yes, you love the dog and you let him out at 7 o'clock in the morning, but at the end of the day, this is his dog. So for him to be like, oh, you need to come home and walk him during the day, while also implying that you have no other obligations, that is so tone deaf, it's not even funny. Does he not know that you're busy with his thesis? I can only imagine how obnoxious this process is for you getting your master's degree. So for him to be like, oh, you don't have anything else going on, go take care of my dog. That's just dumb and absolutely not your problem. So no, you're not the jerk, because your boyfriend easily could hire someone to help out if he really wanted this taken care of in a reasonable way. An entitled mom shows up to my house demanding that I hand over my cat so that she can borrow him for her 6-year-old's birthday party. But despite the fact that I told her on Instagram that my cat isn't available for loan, she still decided to show up to my house, screaming that I was selfish for not handing over my cat. And I've honestly never dealt with anybody this insane in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm an 18-year-old female, and I have a very fluffy and very adorable cat that I named Mochi. He's basically my little buddy, and he's got one of those Instagram accounts where I post funny antics, so a lot of people in my neighborhood know about him. And this includes one mom who is the entitled mom of this story, who has a 6-year-old daughter who's super into cats. Well, one day, this entitled mom messages me on Instagram, saying that her daughter is absolutely obsessed with Mochi, and asking if I could bring him to her daughter's birthday party the following weekend so that the kids could play with him. Well, I politely declined, explaining that Mochi doesn't do well in new environments and would likely hide or freak out around loud kids. Now, what was this entitled mom's response? She said to me, well, can you just loan him to us for the day? And yes, you heard that right. She literally wanted me to just hand over my cat as if he were a library book or something like that. She promised that they would take good care of him and even offered to pay me $20 for the inconvenience. But I politely refused again, saying that Mochi isn't up for loan, and I don't think it would be safe or comfortable for him. This entitled mom immediately switched tactics. She then started calling me selfish and was accusing me of gatekeeping joy from her daughter. She rants about how it's just one day and that I owe it to the community because I flaunt Mochi's pictures online all the time. Well, at this point, I'm now getting irritated. I tell her that my cat isn't an accessory, and he is definitely not something that I owe to the neighborhood. Now, I assume that's the end of it, but unfortunately, things pop off the day of the party. I'm just sitting in my apartment when I hear a loud knock at my door. Standing right in front of me is the entitled mom and her daughter, with the girl holding up a sparkling cat carrier. The entitled mom smiles at me and says, "Oh, we came to pick up Mochi." And she's standing there acting as if we had agreed on this in some kind of way and just expected me to hand him over on demand. Well, I was completely stunned. I then said to her, "Look, I never agreed to this, and I'm definitely not giving up my cat." The entitled mom's smile drops instantly, and she launches into this loud, dramatic rant about how I'm ruining her daughter's special day and that I should not have shown off my cat if I didn't want to share. Her daughter then starts tearing up, and the entitled mom gives me this accusing look, as if I've broken her kid's heart on purpose. My neighbor down the hall actually poked her head out to see what was going on, which was more than enough for this entitled mom to grab her daughter and storm off. As she was leaving, she yelled at me and said, "I'll make sure that everybody knows how selfish you are." I later found out from mutual friends that she spread a story around the neighborhood that I baited her daughter with Mochi, only to then withhold him out of spite. Now, thankfully, nobody really believed her, but she still gives me the dirtiest looks anytime I pass her up. Now, when it comes to Mochi himself, he is completely oblivious and totally unbothered, living his best life as usual, which is exactly how I want him to be. Wow, this lady's crazy. She not only tried to take your cat, but she showed up to your house to do it. First of all, how does she know where you live? That is some creepy behavior right there. That is like really not okay. But it's also insane that she literally had this conversation on messaging the day before, calling you selfish and all this other stuff, and then shows up at your house like, "Okay, we're ready for Mochi." It's like, lady, what are you talking about? You can't do that to someone. You can't just walk up and be like, "We're taking your cat for the day and there's nothing you can do about it." So yeah, this lady's out of her mind if she thought this was okay. Because at the end of the day, the only person who ruined this kid's birthday party is the mom in this story. Because the original poster quite literally didn't do anything wrong. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for laughing at my sister's relationship troubles after she cheated on her boyfriend? Because right now she is not talking to me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a younger sister who we will call Emily, who was with her high school sweetheart by the name of Jake ever since she was 14 years old. For reference, Emily is now 25 years old. They dated all through high school and college, and honestly, they were the epitome of a perfect couple. Jake was always so thoughtful. He would surprise her with gifts, plan elaborate dates, and he literally lit up whenever she was around. They even talked about getting married at one point. Well, fast forward to a few months ago, and Emily cheated on Jake and broke up with him to be with her affair partner, who we will call Mark. Since then, she's been complaining to me about how Mark doesn't do any of the romantic things that Jake used to do. Apparently, he doesn't surprise her with gifts, and their dates are pretty lackluster compared to what she had with Jake. Last week, while I was on the phone with her, she started venting about how she feels unsatisfied in her new relationship. I don't know what came over me, but I just burst out laughing. I mean, she cheated on the guy who literally worshipped the ground she walked on, and now she's complaining about the new guy not measuring up? It just sounded so absurd to me. Emily then got really upset and told me that I was being insensitive. I tried to explain that I wasn't laughing at her pain, but it felt like poetic justice given how she treated Jake. Now she's barely talking to me, and I'm starting to feel bad for laughing at her. So am I the jerk for laughing at my sister, especially after she cheated on someone who treated her like a queen? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk. Emily cheated on Jake and didn't appreciate him at all. She had a fantastic relationship and is only now seeing that she completely screwed it all up. And you know what? If I was her older brother, I would say the exact same thing. I would be like, yeah, this is definitely poetic justice because you completely ruined everything. So no, you're not the jerk here, because what Emily did to Jake, in my opinion, is unacceptable. Me and my friends worked the system at my Catholic high school by quite literally absolving ourselves of any kind of consequences to our bad actions. And I'm honestly still amazed that we got away with it, all because of some loopholes that I thankfully discovered. Here's what happened. So I was raised in a devout Roman Catholic family who sent me and my siblings to Catholic-run schools from kindergarten all the way through high school. Now, for this to make sense, some basic understanding of Catholic religious doctrine is going to be needed. And just bear with me, as I will keep it brief. Catholics practice something called the Sacrament of Holy Confession. The belief is that if you confess your sins to a priest and truly repent for what you've done, the priest priest has the power to forgive your sins in the eyes of God. Most churches will have things called confessionals for this purpose, while some newer ones have small rooms with chairs, and the classic confessional is like a small closet, with the priest sitting in the closet next to you, separated by a privacy screen. Usually, confession will be held after a morning daily mass service, and one or more priests will set up the confessional, and congregants will go in one by one and say their confession. Now, the bond of the confessional is absolutely sacrosanct within the church. Think of it like lawyer-client privilege. A priest is never ever supposed to share anything they learn in the confessional, nor act on any information that they learn. Priests have even been executed by their government for refusing to testify in a trial about something they hear in a confessional. If a priest is found to have broken this bond, he will be kicked out of the priesthood and could possibly even be excommunicated from the church. So basically, it is a very big deal. So much so that the policy for priests is that even if they later learn something through normal means that they originally first learned in the confessional, they are not allowed to act on that information, lest it even give the impression to the person who confessed it that the priest was somehow breaking the bond of confessional. And this last part is very crucial to the story. Well, sophomore year, my Catholic high school had its administration taken over by Salesian, a religious order of brothers and monks who are dedicated to educating children. Our new principal was a Salesian priest and started holding daily mass in our campus chapel every morning before classes. And he really encouraged people to go, but despite his efforts, it really never took off. It would just be the usual 1 to 2 super devout teachers and maybe one other super religious student or so. Then one Monday morning, right after homeroom, we hear the not uncommon announcement over the PA stating that the following students report to the principal's office immediately. Most of the time, this happened when those students were getting disciplined for some weekend shenanigans of some kind, and that is important to know because at a private school like this, we could be punished for that sort of thing. Well, we come to find out that someone threw a raging party. Someone's parents found out, they called the school, and now everyone involved was getting punished. And it was at this moment that I had an incredible epiphany. Next Monday morning, I was at morning mass bright and early, right at the front of the line to go into the confessional afterwards. I sat down with Father Jim, and I confessed to him in great detail all the trouble me and my friends had gotten up to over the weekend. And I told him everything, especially with where we went and who did what. The first time, I think he was kind of surprised. He gave me some acts of contrition to perform, and then said the absolution and sent me on my way. And I think the first few times he was actually pleased with himself that he's starting to really teach these kids. But I'm pretty sure that midway through the semester, he had caught on to what I was doing, and every now and then, he would make a sly reference or crack a smile. But he literally couldn't stop me. You see, by going and confessing everything we did over the weekend to our principal first thing Monday morning, I was putting all that information into the bonds of the confessional. Anything I told him there, Father would never be able to act on without risking serious consequences. If he got to his office and his first message was from my friend's mom explaining how she had caught all of us drinking and smoking in the alley behind her house, he could thank her for the information, but he couldn't punish us for it because I had already told him 20 minutes earlier all about it in the confessional. This tradition lasted all the way through senior year into graduation, and it served me and my friends incredibly well. Some other people must have figured things out as time went on because by the time I graduated, Monday mass sessions were always well attended, and Father had to start doing them earlier to save time for all the confessions he was hearing before classes. Now, I don't know if it was me or the Father that was guilty of malicious compliance here, but it makes me wonder if we played him by going to confessional like he insisted, but only for our own selfish reasons. Or did he play us in some kind of like 4D chess move? I mean, after all, in just 2 years, he somehow managed to get dozens and dozens of high school students to regularly attend mass before class, as well as going to confession every single week. So maybe this was a win-win across the board, because as a result, me and my friends were able to get out of so many problems. That is a really funny way of working the system, because you quite literally put this guy between a rock and a hard place, especially when you consider the impact that all of this would have on that principal's career. Am I the jerk for telling my father-in-law that he is an awful father for the way that he treated my husband? Because after I said that, he got super defensive, and at this point, I'm not sure what to do, or if I made a mistake by talking to him in the first place. Here's what happened. So I knew my husband, who we will call Rowan, for a while before we even started dating. We grew up in the same town, and we were good friends through school, so I met a lot of his family when I was a kid. We lost contact for university, but then kind of talked again afterwards, and have evidently dated and gotten married. When I was a kid, I always kind of thought that Rowan's dad was weird. I obviously didn't have much context for it then, but this is something I always thought. His mom passed passed away when Rowan was young, and he has one older brother who's about 11 years older than him, but obviously the age gap meant that they weren't very close for much of his childhood. I know that when Rowan was a teenager, he acted out, he drank a lot with his friends, got into fights, and didn't have good grades. I don't doubt that he was a difficult kid to raise, but I always thought that he was a good person, and I still do. When we started dating, he told me about the reasons behind him acting out, that his father was always drinking or out of the house, and that he constantly told Rowan that he wasn't good enough, that he was an awful son and all this other garbage, and was also accusing him of sneaking out, doing illegal substances, and he was constantly tearing his room apart looking for anything incriminating. Rowan's changed a lot now, and is a genuinely down-to-earth guy that would help anyone that asked. Him and his father don't really speak anymore, and this was mainly due to a huge argument they had when Rowan was about 18 years old, and his dad said that his mom would be really disappointed in him if she was still alive today, and that he was never going to amount to anything. Rowan told me after that, he packed his bags, stayed with a friend for a while, and hasn't particularly spoken to his dad ever again. Well, Rowan and I went back to the hometown this weekend to see my parents, and me and my mom went out to a bar for ketchup. I immediately recognized his dad because he has a bunch of tattoos of random things on his neck, and that's something that I remember looking at as a kid, and he was standing next to me at the bar. We then made eye contact, and he looked surprised and said something to the effect of, "I heard you and Rowan got married. I'm surprised. He always has been a skirt chaser. Thank God he doesn't speak to me anymore." I then repeated the sentiment that I was glad they didn't speak anymore, but added that it was because he'd been an awful father. Well, when I said that, he got really defensive, saying that Rowan had been difficult to raise, and when he said that, I just turned around and left to go and sit back down with my mom. At this point, I do kind of pity him, but I also wish that I had just not spoken to him and just left the situation. So am I the jerk for the way I handle this, and for calling this guy an awful father? What should I do? No, this guy really does sound like a piece of garbage. Like, how is that an introduction to like literally talking to someone who is married to your son? Like, if he's gonna give out that kind of garbage, then he had better be ready to receive it in return, because this guy's attitude, in my opinion, was completely inappropriate. And the fact that he got defensive after the terrible things that he said, in my opinion, shows exactly how awful this guy is. Today, I need to confess that the worst mistake I ever made was telling people that I won the lottery, because now everybody knows that I'm incredibly rich. But as a result, I had to cut literally everybody out of my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I won the lottery about 7 years ago. Between my annuity and profits made from investments, I get shy of $800,000 a year. I was absolutely stunned that I had won, but once I confirmed that I won, I started telling people. I thought that they would be happy for me, and they were happy for like a minute, but then they started asking me for money. It started with my friends and family, and then they told other people, and eventually I was literally getting 10 calls a day from people asking me for money. My favorite was the sister of my coworker saying she needed money for rent, and a friend asking me to buy them a $20,000 ring for a girl he had been dating only a few months, and she was even messing around with other guys on the side. Some people successfully used me, and I just eventually cut them off, and I still helped some people, but I had to cut them off too, because they were asking me for money only to give it to others or using the money for something different. It was all very traumatic. I even had a therapist try to rip me off by asking me for a cash tip after our sessions. Eventually, I was spending more money on people than I was on myself. It's ironic that I have more money than I need, yet I can't give it away because it brings nothing but problems. People make generosity not worth it. People want me to finance their best lives and have the arrangement be exclusively on their terms. And I will never understand why people can't accept one thing without trying to get more. So I just chalk it up that people in my life had no respect for me, because this is something that honestly I'm so sick of dealing with. Okay, I think I've read so many stories like this, and the biggest common theme is that if you win the lottery, literally don't tell anybody. Keep it a secret and keep a lid on it. Because for starters, let's be honest, none of us are gonna win anything like that. The odds are so low it's not even funny. But if it does happen, like, my God, do yourself a favor and just don't say anything to anybody, because then you're gonna end up like the original poster. They're getting 10 calls a day from people being like, "Hey, can I have some money?" And then pretty quick, all your family and friends are gonna become like these leeches in your life. Like, I can see that becoming really traumatic and just so awful, because I know when I have good news, I talk to my family and I tell them everything. So you would think that this would be something that would be like safe to talk about, but no, it's just gonna be used against you probably forever. So hopefully all of this settles in some kind of way, and hopefully you're able to like enjoy this money and use it for a good reason, and not just to like fund other people's lives or activities. Because after a while, I can imagine that being a nightmare to deal with, especially if you have have to cut people out of your life because they turned into a toxic mess? Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I won't be giving my son her last name? Because as a result, she's changed the rules of the trust that we have in our family that would basically deny my kid any chance at any money that we have as a family, all because his last name would be different. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female who's expecting my first child with my partner of almost 8 years. Our son is due in less than 2 months. And for this story to make sense, it requires some backstory. My father isn't in the picture, so my immediate family is me, my mom, and my twin. About 3 years ago, my maternal grandmother passed away. I didn't have a relationship with her, and neither did my mom due to them always fighting. My grandma was quite wealthy, and when she passed away, she left me and my twin $500,000 total in a trust that we couldn't access until we were 25 years old. But on the other hand, she left my mother absolutely nothing. So my mother got a lawyer and got money released early from that trust with the condition that me and my twin gave her half of our inheritance each. Now, if we hadn't agreed to give her anything, she would have gotten absolutely nothing. Our mom then convinced us to put all the money into a trust of her own that would be for our family exclusively for education and housing, saying it would build stability for future generations. So I used this money to get a house that me and my partner currently live in. Since my mom found out I was pregnant, she's been very pushy that we use her last name, which is currently my last name. It's a traditional Scottish name with a capital letter in the middle and a lot of use of the letters M and N. I didn't like the last name as it's hard to pronounce just from reading it. I also fully intended to take my partner's last name in the future. 3 months ago, I told her that we wouldn't be using her last name and we would be using just my partner's last name instead. Well, when I said this set her off, calling me petty and ungrateful. Now, I apologized for upsetting her and I asked if we could have a conversation about it so I could understand why it upset her. I expressed that I love her and I don't want her to be upset with me, but she refused, saying it was my child and I could do what I wanted. Well, after that, I assumed that she had come to terms with it and just moved on. But fast forward to last week, and I get a text message from my mom saying the following: "By the way, I've made changes to the trust. My last name needs to be your child's surname if you want him to benefit from the trust. I have not worked this hard for the future just to support your partner's last name. That is just the way it is. Either use my last name or your kid gets nothing. I'd rather take the lot and just spend it." But when I saw this message, this really upset me. I asked her to give me some time and space to think about what she's done, but she then went off on me about how her hard work wouldn't be wasted, even though she herself said it would be set up for future generations just like my kid. She wouldn't even have any money to blackmail me in the first place if we didn't agree to give her half of my inheritance after her own mother screwed her over. So at this point, I've got no contact, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm the jerk for not just using her last name to keep her happy in order to make sure that my son gets access to that money. I don't want him to miss out just because his grandmother is an entitled piece of work. What should I do? Oh man, this one is awful. First of all, you did not do anything wrong, and no, you're not the jerk for picking your partner's last name. Your mom is insane, and the way she's treating you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. This is some grade A manipulation that you absolutely do not deserve. Like, there were a lot of mistakes that kind of led us to this point where you gave her half your inheritance and then put all of it in a trust that she can access, because that was just like not a good move. Clearly your grandmother knew something that you didn't, because your mom got nothing from her mom, and I think we're starting to see why, because she is clearly a vindictive psychopath. Like, who in their right mind would act like this? Like, this is so unfair. So hopefully you can find some kind of resolution to this, especially when it comes to having this trust that was supposed to be for the family itself, because it literally just doesn't seem right that your mom can literally change the rules of this trust just to deny your kid specifically, all because you're not using the same last name, because that in and of itself is absolutely not fair. An entitled Karen tries to get me in trouble after I park my RV in my driveway, and even though I'm obeying all the rules of the homeowners association, this entitled Karen goes into a rage, even going as far as trying to turn my neighbors against me, all so that she can get me in trouble for having an RV in the first place. Here's what happened. So I live in a pretty standard suburban neighborhood, and like a lot of places, it's run by an HOA. A few months ago, I decided to buy an RV, and it wasn't anything fancy as it was a used one, but I was really looking forward to taking weekend road trips and having the freedom to get away whenever I felt like it. So I parked in my driveway thinking nothing of it, but within a week, I received a letter from the HOA. Apparently, RVs aren't allowed to be parked in the driveway or on the street for more than 72 hours at a time. The letter warned that if I didn't move it, I'd start getting fined $50 a day. I wasn't thrilled, but I wasn't just gonna give up my RV either. either. So I read through the rules carefully. The HOA guidelines said that RVs must be not visible from the street or common areas. And that was it. No specifics on where or how the RV had to be parked, just that it couldn't be seen. Well, if that's what they wanted, that's exactly what I'm going to give them. I called up a contractor and had a solid 8-foot privacy fence installed around my front yard. It was a simple wooden fence, tall enough to completely block the view of my driveway from the street, and I made sure that it was solid, with no gaps or any chance of anyone being able to see through it. I parked the RV right up against the fence, hidden from view, meaning that technically I was following the rules perfectly and I knew it. But of course, things didn't stay quiet for very long. One of my neighbors, who we will call Karen, had already been vocal about not liking the RV in my driveway. She was the first one to send me a complaint about it, calling it an eyesore and saying it was ruining the neighborhood's charm. She even knocked on my door demanding that I move it. When I told her I was following the rules and had made sure the RV wasn't visible, she left in a huff, muttering something about how the HOA would take care of it. Well, the HOA did respond, but not in the way that Karen expected. A few days later, I get a letter from the HOA saying that they had reviewed the situation and found no violations. They acknowledged that I was in compliance, but trust me, this entitled Karen was not having it for a single second. Over the next few weeks, she went around the neighborhood complaining to the other neighbors about how the RV was still ruining the community's aesthetic. She was convinced the HOA just hadn't caught on yet, and she started rallying people to get the rules changed. She even went as far as knocking on doors and asking neighbors to send complaints to the HOA about my RV. I then started getting passive-aggressive comments when I ran into neighbors. One said to me, "Oh, I'm sure the HOA is going to change the rules soon enough." And another just sighed and said, "This isn't what this neighborhood is supposed to be about." But every time they complained, I just smiled and said, "I'm in compliance with the HOA's rules. I'm not doing anything wrong." But this entitled Karen wasn't done. A month later, she went straight to the HOA board, trying to rally a group of neighbors to push for a rule change to make sure no RV can be parked anywhere in the neighborhood. She got a couple of others on board, and they started sending in complaints about how my RV was ruining the neighborhood's curb appeal. So the HOA called me in for a meeting. I was a little nervous, but I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong. When the HOA arrived, they started walking around my yard looking for the RV. After a few minutes of confusion, one of them finally said, "So you're still parking the RV here?" I then nodded and pointed towards my driveway, where the RV was hidden behind the fence. I told them, well, yes, it's still here, but as you can see, it's not visible from the street. I'm following the rules exactly. The HOA rep stood there for a moment, looking frustrated, because there was no way they could argue with that. After a long silence, one of them sighed and said, "Well, I guess we can't really do anything about it if it's not visible." And surprisingly enough, that was the end of it. The HOA couldn't do anything more, and the Karen and the other neighbors had no legal ground to stand on. But this entitled Karen wasn't ready to give up just yet. A few days later, this Karen sent me a message. "I guess you win this round, but I'm watching you. I'll be keeping an eye out for any mistake or violation, and when I find one, I'll be right on it." But all I did was smile to myself. She could be watching all she wanted, but the fact of the matter is that my RV was hidden, and I was in full compliance. After that, things quieted down. No more complaints, no more passive-aggressive comments, and while this Karen may be eyeing me up, there was nothing left that she could do, because I had completely won. As someone who deals with an HOA on a daily basis, this is honestly so satisfying. Do you know that some of these rules are so stupid? Most of the time, HOAs are run by a bunch of old people who have stupid rules in place that literally ruins everything in the neighborhood. Some things can be reasonable, but for the most part, it's all just really annoying and tedious stuff. So the fact that the original poster worked around it and used their system against them, in my opinion, is so satisfying. So good for the original poster for getting back at these people, and for getting back at this annoying entitled Karen for literally trying to ruin your life, because your solution to this problem was absolutely brilliant. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not reacting properly after half of my friend group lied to me and the rest of us that they had booked a surprise Airbnb so that we could have our Secret Santa event? But in reality, this was a house that they bought secretly behind our backs that they lied to us about, expecting us to all pay $60 going towards this Airbnb. And now, as a result, me and the rest of my friends are questioning the intentions of the other half of our friend group, because right now we really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so every year our friend group hosts a Secret Santa event. A major part of this tradition involves booking an Airbnb where most of us plan to stay, though not everyone who shows up ends up sleeping there. Typically, we spend a few hours on Discord searching for Airbnbs that meet our criteria. We consider the location, location, capacity, our budget, and then we start bookmarking options for further review. This year, our entire friend group followed the usual process, spending hours searching through listings and bookmarking potential choices to revisit later. Then, about 2 weeks ago, half the group, we'll call this Group B, suddenly stopped communicating with us, we'll call us Group A, and went completely silent on Discord for an entire week. This abrupt change left Group A confused, prompting us to ask questions about what was going on and why Group B had suddenly stopped communicating with us. Suddenly, a few days later, Group B's main planner, the person who typically leads our event coordination, announced that he had booked a surprise Airbnb that was within budget and it was located in a great area. While Group A appreciated the effort, we requested more details, wanting at least some basic information about the place. However, the planner refused to provide any specifics, repeatedly responding with, "Oh, just trust me," and informing us that each participant would need to contribute $60, and this will be important later on. As days passed, Group A grew increasingly confused and uneasy about this Airbnb, which we were expected to help pay for, without any assurance or photos of what we were actually funding. Then a friend close to some members of Group B, we'll call him Jay for the sake of the story, let us know that the planner had recently purchased a house where everyone in Group B would be moving into. While we recognized this as an impressive feat for Group B, we were still confused by their continued insistence on presenting it as an Airbnb that we needed to contribute $60 a person towards. So with this information, Group A tried to get confirmation from Group B, but they wouldn't even budge, even as the Secret Santa event came closer. Jay also told us that part of the so-called surprise was that we wouldn't actually need to pay for anything, since the planner owned the house. Finally, last night, Group B revealed the truth. They had moved into a newly acquired house, and it would be the location of our Secret Santa event. But Group A wasn't thrilled about the week of lies and secrecy over something we had initially believed was an Airbnb that we were expected to fund. Well, after that, Group B was not happy with us, claiming that we acted essentially like babies for not being more supportive of their actions in getting this house for our event. So truly, am I the jerk for making them feel disappointed in us by reacting in a disgruntled manner? What should I do? Okay, this is absolutely insane. This is incredibly weird for starters, but also it comes off as super sketchy. For starters, they lied to the group. They literally said, "Oh, it's an Airbnb and we got it as a surprise." And part of that lie was that you had to pay $60 towards this stupid Airbnb, which by the way, it's not an Airbnb, and the $60 would have gone to God knows what. Like that for me is 2 strikes already, and the fact that they couldn't be upfront with you and they were lying and basically like hiding around the corner their actual intentions, for me is the 3rd strike in this situation. The person coordinating Group B is an absolute moron. If they had just been honest about what was actually going on, this could have been a great thing for the entire group. Like, why not just be open and honest upfront about what's going on instead of running around and being like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be a secret. I can't tell you what's going on, sorry." The fact that they had to find out from somebody inside the group the actual intentions of Group B, in my opinion, is so toxic it's not even funny. But worse yet, it's the fact that they try to be like, "Wow, you're acting like a bunch of babies." It's like, no dude, I'm not being a baby. You're asking me to just trust you on traveling to some place I've never gone to before, buying a plane ticket and going to a house I've never seen in my life. That's not me acting like a baby. That's me actually having, I don't know, some common sense about myself. For this person to expect you to just trust them no matter what and be like, "Oh, don't worry, there's a surprise coming." Like, that's insane. That's not okay. Like, that really is super sketchy. There's no other way to look at this. Like, this would make me question if I even knew this person to begin with. Having friends on Discord can be nice, and it really is a good way to connect with people, but in situations like this, you need to know for a fact if you can trust this person or not. Because if I had a friend who was like, "Oh yeah, we've got a house set up, don't worry about it," and they then refused to give me any more information, then I would back out immediately and probably never trust them ever again. Because this behavior is completely uncalled for, and they have no right to treat you in this manner. Am I the jerk for not attending a reception to a wedding I was uninvited from? Because right now, my boyfriend's friends are saying that I overreacted by not showing up, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend's childhood friend got married this weekend. My boyfriend and I have been newly dating maybe about 6 months, and I have always gotten the cold shoulder from his friends. For context, my boyfriend and his friends have been close since grade school, so basically there's some really small town vibes going on. Since beginning our relationship, I have seen his friends a total of 3 to 4 times, while we hang out with my friend group fairly regularly. I've known about this wedding since the beginning of our relationship, and in the few times I've seen his friends, their wedding always came up, and the bride and I had briefly spoken about timeline, the excitement, and all this other stuff. Well, this week, my boyfriend told me that I had been uninvited from their ceremony because they were over capacity, but also stated that I was was more than welcome to attend the reception. I asked the normal questions. Was I the only one uninvited? Isn't it more expensive to have more people at the reception than the ceremony? And all this other stuff. He mentioned that there was an exception for married couples, which happens to be everyone else in the party. So clearly some more small town vibes. He is a groomsman in the wedding, and throughout the day, we have been talking about what I can and should wear, when to get there, and what to expect. He then texted me later into the evening and said dinner was about to be served. I asked if that was part of the reception or if I was missing something else, but apparently I was only allowed to come to drink and party, but not to any of the other wedding festivities. I then put my phone on Do Not Disturb for the evening and I just stayed home. Now, my boyfriend supports my decision, but his friends said that I was overreacting. So was I the jerk for not attending a reception to a wedding I was uninvited from? What should I do? Okay, first off, no, you didn't do anything wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk because how are you overreacting here? You didn't do anything. You literally stayed home and didn't go to a wedding that they clearly didn't want you at in the first place. And why show up at all? It's pretty obvious they don't like you. They've given you the cold shoulder pretty much from day one, and it doesn't seem like they've made any attempt to get to know you or have any kind of friendship with you in the first place. And there's not really a good enough excuse to be like, oh, that's understandable, because they know your boyfriend really well. In fact, they've known each other since grade school. So for them to not make any attempt at you being involved in the group in some kind of way is just so weird and uncalled for. So personally, I don't blame you for not showing up, because their reaction alone, in my opinion, pretty much confirms that they wanted you to be offended about not being invited. They wanted you at the reception to show up and feel left out just so they could be like, oh yeah, look at her, she wasn't at the wedding. But instead, they were met with you taking a stand and standing up for yourself. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and I think you made the better choice by staying home, because these people clearly do not care about you. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend after he invited a homeless man that I've never met before into my house to spend the night? Because right now he is not talking to me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. He lives about 2 hours away, so we often stay at each other's houses for long stretches of time as we both work from home. My boyfriend is genuinely the most generous and caring person I've ever met. He regularly befriends homeless people on the street, volunteers at food banks in his free time, and always carries cash to help out people who may be down on their luck. He had a rough patch before I met him, so he likes to give back when he can. Now, he's been staying at my place for about a week, and this all happened yesterday. I was out running errands while my boyfriend was working, and when I got back home at around 5 o'clock, I walked into my apartment and was greeted by a total stranger in my kitchen. Now, I screamed initially from the surprise, but my boyfriend was there and explained the situation immediately. The man's name for the sake of the story will be Roger, and he was homeless. My boyfriend had apparently met him on a walk today, and they had started chatting. Roger mentioned that he had been sleeping in a tent for the last month, and my boyfriend had offered my couch up to him for a few nights, along with a few meals and hot showers. And when I heard this, I didn't know what to say, so I excused myself to the bathroom for just a little bit. I heard my boyfriend and Roger chatting in the other room, and honestly, he seemed nice enough, but I felt so uncomfortable by the whole situation. I ended up making some excuse about meeting a friend for dinner just so I could leave the apartment. But while I was out, I texted him saying that while I respect his generosity, I really wish he hadn't offered my apartment without consulting me first. I told him that it made me very uncomfortable to share my space with a complete stranger that I don't know at all. I said that if he wanted to let him take a shower and have a meal, that was fine, but I did not want him staying the night. Well, when I got back home at around 10 o'clock, Roger was gone, since my boyfriend had gotten him a hotel for the night. He and I got into an argument about how he felt I was classist and that I was unwelcoming for not letting Roger stay. He said when he was in Roger's position, he would have been so grateful for a couch and a hot meal like this one. He also claimed that if he had brought home a friend that I didn't know who wasn't homeless, then I wouldn't have kicked him out. I don't think he was right by inviting anyone, homeless or not, into my house without asking me first. Also, the couch he offered is brand new. I'm trying to be very careful with it, and to be completely honest, all of Roger's clothing and belongings smelled heavily of cigarettes as he was sitting on it. I have a very sensitive nose, and I know even in just the time that he was here, it will take me days to stop smelling it. My boyfriend hasn't spoken to me all day, and he went out at around noon, probably to check on Roger in the hotel room. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Your boyfriend is out of his mind if he thinks this is okay. If he wants to volunteer his house for homeless people or work at the food bank or the soup kitchen, then fine, go for that. That's absolutely fantastic, and that's a great thing for him to do. But for him to volunteer your home to this guy that you've never met with the expectation he's going to be sleeping in the same house as you, that in my opinion is crazy. That is not only super unsafe but also incredibly stupid of your boyfriend. Because let's get down to the facts real quick. How well does he know Roger? Does he know if Roger has a weapon on him? Or maybe like illegal substances of some kind? Like he doesn't know any of that information. This guy could be lying about his story and waiting to get in people's houses to like exploit their generosity and then rob the place blind or even injure you and your boyfriend. Because let's be honest, your boyfriend is being super naive. I understand he was homeless at some point, but to open up someone else's house for him to bring homeless people in, that is crazy, and there is no good excuse for that. Because he literally forced this upon you when you did not agree to this at all. And that, in my opinion, is absolutely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for telling my mom to stop playing the victim after she tries to pretend that nobody appreciates her at Thanksgiving dinner? Because after I called her out in front of the entire family, she stormed off, repeating to me the things I've heard since my childhood about me being selfish and incredibly cruel. And now my family is split down the middle, with some of them saying I was in the right to call her out, but the others saying that I was heartless in that moment. And so because of that, I feel incredibly confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom and I have always had a strained relationship. Growing up, I learned early that everything had to be about her needs, her feelings, etc. I was expected to manage my emotions around her, tiptoeing through every interaction to try and keep the peace. If something didn't go her way, she'd somehow twist the situation until she was the one hurt, the one who'd done everything right and was never appreciated. I hated the way it made me feel, but I told myself that one day I'd have a chance to set boundaries and live my life without walking on eggshells. But as an adult, nothing's really changed. I still find myself anxiously checking my tone, weighing every word before I speak, just to keep her from making herself the victim. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving for the family, and I promised myself that it would be a peaceful day. My mom would come, but I'd just focus on keeping things calm. No drama was gonna happen. Well, things were fine at first. My dad was cracking jokes, everyone was catching up, and I started to think that maybe this time would be different. Then, as we sat down to eat, my mom started in. First, it was the small jabs and comments about how I never call and how I'm always too busy for her. I tried to brush them off, but then she moved on to bigger things, saying how family means so much to her, but she feels like she's the only one who cares. That's when she launched into her usual spiel about how much she's sacrificed, how no one appreciates her, and how she's such a good mother who's never shown gratitude. At this point, I could feel my blood start to boil. I tried to hold my tongue, but I couldn't do it. So I snapped at her. I said to her, "Mom, you really need to stop playing the victim. It is exhausting, and it's why we don't get along." After I said that, the room went dead silent. She sat there absolutely shocked before her face crumbled and she started crying. She called me cruel, heartless, and that I had ruined Thanksgiving. She said she only ever tried to love me, but I was too selfish to see it. Then she stormed out, and my dad followed her, giving me a sad look like he knew this was coming but couldn't do anything about it. And now my family is completely divided. Some of my relatives have called me to say they understand, that she needed to hear it, but others think that I was heartless, that I could have been kinder or more tactful. They keep saying she's my mother, and that one day I'll regret speaking to her in this way. But a part of me feels like I had to say it. If I didn't draw a line now, I'd be stuck in this cycle forever. So now I'm conflicted, because I never wanted to hurt her, especially not on Thanksgiving Day. I just couldn't keep pretending her behavior was okay. She refuses to see her role in our issues, and I'm tired of always being the one who has to accommodate her feelings. So am I the jerk for finally telling her the truth, even if it hurt her feelings at Thanksgiving dinner? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I can't stand people who act like this, who literally try to make it seem like they're the victim of any situation that's in front of them, while also being the person who's like instigating some kind of argument. Like, that is super annoying, and it's something I seriously cannot stand. But you know what? In my opinion, if your mom really wanted to be some kind of victim, then congratulations, you get to be the victim. But in this case, it's not over nothing. And sure, the rest of your family doesn't understand the nuance of your relationship with your mom, but that doesn't matter. She clearly has acted like this your entire childhood, and now, even as an adult, she's still doing it. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be so frustrated putting up with that all the time. Like, seriously, when does it end? When is she gonna grow up and stop trying to start drama and take these jabs at you and try to pretend like, oh yeah, nobody appreciates me? Because in reality, she is the one causing the problems. And sure, this did happen in front of the entire family, but your mom is the one who started this in the middle of Thanksgiving. And if she can't take your honest words about the situation, then maybe she's the one who shouldn't have started it in the first place. My psycho ex-boyfriend has been cheating not only on me, but with literally every single woman he's ever been with for several years. So after having my heart broken and watching my entire life fall apart, my best friend and I decided to get some revenge by quite literally ruining his life from the ground up. Here's what happened. So in a nutshell, my ex-boyfriend, who we will call Seth, could be pretty accurately described as a sociopath. Of course, that was never apparent to me while we were dating, but those familiar with ASPD will know that many sociopaths wear an elaborate mask and lie as easily as breathing, and this was definitely true for Seth. When I met him, we quickly became close friends. We had a couple of weeks in there where we thought we might start dating, but he wanted to move way faster than I was ready for, so we remained in the friend zone instead. He was progressive and emotionally intelligent and generous. We loved the same music and shows and activities, and he showed vulnerability. He even shared his traumatic childhood background with me. And as a side note, he leaned on this story often as a pillar of his victimhood, which he uses to manipulate everybody else around him. He also shared very early on, before anything physical ever happened, that he has HSV2. Not to say that there were zero red flags about this guy, but the good I saw in him was so overwhelming that I had an easy time dismissing them. We started dating in a weird way. During our friend zone time that lasted about a year, he had moved out of state to be with a new partner by the name of Melody, who he had been dating for only a few months. He never shared a lot of details about her, and I had assumed that they had some kind of history that explained the seemingly sudden seriousness of their relationship. Then, seriously, like 2 months into the move, Seth started to message me in a more flirty way. He told me he loved me, and that it took moving away to realize what he had. Obviously, this made me really uncomfortable. I told him I wasn't interested in being the other woman, or in a long-distance relationship of any kind, and that he and I needed to keep it platonic. He supposedly tried to make it work with her for several more months, while also telling me how she was an alcoholic, and that she would yell at him and all this other stuff. Eventually, he told me that they broke up, and that he was making arrangements to move back, but he was still living with her though. He then began sending increasingly flirtatious and romantic messages, and this is the point where I almost escaped him, but he was clever enough to make friends with my roommate, who we will call Eris, since Eris and I had been living together for 7 years. A serendipitous friend of a friend turned to a roommate situation eventually evolved into a deep friendship. Eris helped convince me that he was really a good guy who was madly in love with me, and that despite the weirdness of his moving out of state and then changing his mind, I should finally give him a real chance. And this is where I can truly say I messed up big time. Now, without going into great detail about the relationship, I can say that the typical idolize and devalue pattern of emotional mistreatment began to emerge pretty soon after we moved in together. Even though he was really sweet most of the time, he moved into the townhouse I shared with Eris about a year after he moved back to town, and we had begun dating officially for 6 months. He lived with us for about a year and a half. Now, with that bit of background out of the way, let's get to the good stuff. Just like any good sociopath, he was lying about a lot, being manipulative, and cheating like you would not believe. Seeing as this post is already way too long, I probably should skip to the story of how Eris caught him cheating. Now, by sheer intuition, they glanced at his phone one evening when the three of us were at home together. They saw him open, close, and then like an Instagram DM that was definitely a spicy picture, if you know what I mean. When Eris saw this, they instantly texted me as I was sitting opposite him on the couch, and you know what? I called him out. He angled his phone away from me to delete the message thread, but Eris saw him do it. He then gaslit the both of us and denied it. He denied the DM, he denied deleting it, and honestly, I didn't know who to believe, either my partner or my best friend. Now, I really believe them both, and I thought there must be some rational explanation that lets Seth off the hook without invalidating what I believe Eris saw. I could not believe that he could look me dead in the eye and lie to me like that, and he even cried and played the victim in all of this. A day later, he came up with a plausible explanation for the spicy photo in his DMs. He said that the photo was sent to his friend by a fan of their band because she had gotten a tattoo of their logo or something like that, and that the friend sent it to him to say, hey, check this out, which by the way is super gross. He had private conversations with both myself and Eris, and we later found out that he had used different reasons, all catered to our own biases, just to excuse himself for lying and gaslighting. For Eris, it was his religious trauma, and to me, it was past relationship trauma of his insecure and paranoid ex over-policing his social media use. At this point, he was on thin ice with me, and I didn't really know how he was going to be able to rebuild the trust, but we lived together and had just adopted a dog together, and our lives were so intertwined, I just wanted to go back to normal if we could. I really wanted to believe him and not blow up our lives over some spicy pictures on his phone. Then, just a couple of weeks later, Eris went to a party at Seth's ex-roommate's house. Seth had left the roommate situation on pretty bad terms, burning the bridge with the ex-roommate who we will call Loon. Well, one of Loon's friends, who we will call Holly, pulled Eris aside to tell them that Seth was cheating on me. Apparently, Holly had been sending some spicy text messages with Seth a few months back, and was basically sending some very spicy pictures as well, if you know what I mean. He then began to get really pushy about convincing her to spend more quality time with him and another girl who we will call Tiara, and he even sent spicy pictures of Tiara over to Holly. Well, she eventually got grossed out by him and ghosted him, and he responded to the ghosting by getting upset and aggressive with her. When he was confronted, he denied everything and willingly handed over his phone, which had of course been scrubbed of all evidence. He gaslit, he denied, he cried, and he even threw up. I asked him for the truth so many times, but he gazed into my eyes and told me I was the love of his life and that none of this made any sense, even asking why Holly would make this up. I wanted to believe him so bad, but I contacted Holly and she provided receipts. And when I saw this, I kicked him out immediately. He packed up some clothing and left that night. I told him to get the rest of his crap while I was at work and to never speak to me again. Then I blocked him on everything, and that was the last time I spoke to him. But Eris was not so tolerant, because this begins the most satisfying part of this story. As Seth was packing his bags to get out that first night, I was numb and in shock, and still very used to protecting his feelings and shielding him from my friend's criticism. So I didn't let Eris vandalize his car like they wanted to. Well, they did write liar on the hood of his car in lipstick, and we even took some pictures of it. But after he left, Eris did the thing that would open Pandora's box. They posted a warning on social media. They are something of an internet personality and make their living on TikTok, so their Instagram has decent reach. The Instagram story simply showed his profile and gave the warning that he is a liar and a cheater. Well, the release of this information made Seth come a day earlier than planned to get the rest of his stuff. Now, I was at work and planned to stay there until he was gone, but Eris had made plans to make his move as miserable as possible. For starters, the night before he came to pack up, Eris and I unorganized his meticulously curated record collection, moving records into the wrong sleeves while de-alphabetizing the sleeves themselves. Eris wanted to break them, but I wouldn't let them. I was still protecting him in some kind of way, but I did allow them to scratch some and let the dog bite a couple of them and tear some of the inserts. Eris also ripped all the strings off of his bass guitar and threw away one of his pedals when I wasn't around. Now, when he came to collect his stuff, Eris blasted the song IDFWU by Big Sean on repeat until he packed up his soundbar. But then Eris continued to play it on their phone as loud as they could. They threw dog kibble at him as he packed his things in the living room, all while booing him and yelling shame. Eris would also not allow Seth's brother in the house to help him move. For reference, Eris is 6 foot tall and can be very intimidating. Seth argued and tried to bring his brother inside, but Eris physically blocked the door. They then began to yell, "Don't you dare come into my house. You do not have permission to be here. He is not getting help. He is doing this by himself, and he is going to suffer." Eris then mocked and laughed at Seth and took video of him moving his stupid, precious, mid-century modern dresser down the stairs on his own as his brother stood outside completely helpless. Towards the end of his eviction, I messaged Eris that I had found Tiara's Instagram account, and Eris yelled at him, "Oh, we found Tiara." And after that, he had a fire lit under his butt so hot that he finished up so quickly that he forgot to take a bunch of stuff, including his 55-inch Roku TV, an IKEA bar chart, a humidifier, a collection of really nice art supplies, and a cool hanging lamp that we love. So honestly, it was kind of a score for us. Meanwhile, Eris's post blew up locally, and all of a sudden, both Eris and I were receiving DMs from women who had information. He was either in their DMs being creepy, or they had been sending spicy text messages with him, or even worse, they had met up with him and they had spent some quality time together, if you know what I mean. We found that he had a completely different MO with these women, asking them to do really sketchy stuff that he never even brought up with me, pressuring them for spicy photos, pressuring them into making videos with him, if you know what I mean, and getting creepy and pushy with a lot of them. He constructed different lies for different affairs. Some of them were short-term and some were ongoing for months. I'm pretty sure he was cheating with Tiara for about a year, and she thought he and I were open. We found out from an old acquaintance of his that this is not Seth's first public outing for this behavior, and that his behavior back in 2017 ended on very eerily similar terms. After he had moved to New England for his marriage, he had to move back to our state after being outed. As screenshots and stories rolled in, I began to realize that he was not sharing his HSV2 status with any of these women. I saw a screenshot of him telling someone that he had just been tested and that he was negative for any STIs. And at that point, alarms started blaring in my mind. He was not only manipulating women into spending quality time with him by spreading lies about he and I being in an open relationship, but he was also withholding his health information. This is absolutely predatory, period. Eris then makes another post, and this time much more incriminating, sharing outright that this guy is sketchy in vivid detail. Well, the fallout from the second post is even worse for Seth. At this point, he's losing friends and texting partners in his creepy escapades left and right. We get into contact with the most recent ex, and do you remember how I mentioned Melody earlier in the story? Well, it turns out that he did not break up with Melody when he said he did, and that when he moved back here, she and him were still a couple, so he had been cheating on her with me after all. When I told him we couldn't be flirty or romantic when he was in a relationship, he just decided to pretend he wasn't, but he still later on used the idea that, oh, I made a sacrifice for you and I moved back here, all as some kind of like manipulation tactic with me on many occasions. Now, Melody, fortunately enough, used to live in our city and used to work at the venue that Seth's band was booked to play in the coming week. Well, Melody went ahead and put a word in with the venue, asking them if they really wanted to feature some creep like Seth on their stage. Well, the venue dropped the show, which clued in Seth's bandmates to the situation, who decided to dissolve the band. It's now been over 6 months, and for me, I've had a lot of therapy sessions, and at this point, I'm just trying to move on and recover, and never date another man for the rest of my life. But then, a couple of weeks ago, Eris received some new information. The acquaintance who told us about the ex-wife in New England still follows Seth out of pure hatred, and she shares that he's now posting clues that he's dating someone new. She then provided the Instagram handle of the new partner, let's call her Haley for the sake of the story, and Eris told me that they wanted to reach out, and I said go for it, but just please leave me out of it. Well, it turns out that Seth is back at it with his old patterns. Haley, of course, knew nothing of his public shaming or past behavior. She got the same love bombing and illusion that I got from him, with no pressure for spicy pictures or any other quality time, but instead he was just a sweet and attentive tortured soul with so much love and generosity to give, and he had this sad childhood. But anyways, Eris found out that they've been talking for several months, and Haley lives in New England, and Seth was actually planning to move up there to be with her. And it's like, people, do we see a pattern here or what? She had plane tickets and had planned to come here to visit him the upcoming weekend. Eris provided Haley with all the screenshots she had asked for, and I think even put her in touch with one of the affair partners. Well, feeling empowered with the truth, Haley broke up with Seth and blocked him everywhere. Now, completely unrelated, but we did hear that he had also posted about his car crashing and had borrowed money from one of his last remaining friends to get it fixed. I also hear that he's gone down to part-time at his job and may be on the way to being fired. He works in the music industry and information gets around pretty quickly. I mean, nobody wants a pariah on their payroll. The last I found out from Eris was that Seth is now planning to move to the East Coast to live with his one remaining loyalist pick-me friend, who is the one who paid for his car. So at the end of the day, his life was ruined by cheating on me, and all I had to do was have a very cool friend to make it all happen. My God, this story's amazing. You have one amazing friend who had your back from start to finish. They made this guy's life a living nightmare, and honestly, based on what you described, he absolutely deserved it. This guy was going to so many different people behind your back. I can only imagine how devastating that must have been. Like, not only did you not deserve that, but Seth is a massive piece of garbage, like my God. And obviously all the names in this story are fake, but just think about all the women this guy completely ruined and cheated on and just manipulated in so many different ways. And these are just the women that we know about. God knows how long he'd been doing this and how long he'd been getting away with it. So honestly, I'm so glad you were able to get some kind of revenge from this, because Seth absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled Karen neighbor hates me for literally no reason, as she is actively trying to make up lies to create a divide between me and my husband. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my husband and I recently moved into a new place, and our neighbors are either in their 30s or their 40s. We don't talk to anyone, and we really just keep to ourselves. So the first interaction we had was when the neighbor woman dropped by on her own to see who had moved in next door. And this is what she said to me when I came to the door. "Oh, hi there. I just wanted to see who moved in." She then proceeds to ask me questions about myself. She asked me how old I was, and then would say, "Oh, you look too young to be a homeowner. Are you renting? I thought this was a for sale listing. Are you even married? What do you do for work?" And this entire line of questioning just felt incredibly rude. It felt like she was collecting information and knowledge about us. Now, because she only met me that day, as my husband was not home, she decided to show up again on the weekend. This time, my husband answered the door. She was much nicer to him, and because my husband reported such a different interaction to me, we watched it back on the doorbell camera footage, and I told him there was an obvious difference. She was laughing and touching his arm, and not interrogating him, but instead having a conversation. She even made a joke about how she will make sure to ask him to help her out if she ever needs to do any heavy lifting, and that in and of itself was completely fine. I lightly teased my husband about it, and honestly, it's just there for a bit of context. Over the months, many micro interactions occurred. She would smile and wave and start up small conversations with my husband, and continue to laugh and joke lightheartedly wholeheartedly. In fact, she complained about her husband to him a lot, and some of it actually got caught on the doorbell camera. But with me, she would have this sour kind of face. She would ask me nosy questions or try to give me unsolicited advice on everything. For example, while commenting on my dress, she would say, "What a lovely little sheer thing you're wearing," with emphasis on the word sheer and a negative connotation, even though I had on a slip underneath and nothing was showing, and I had a layered long jacket on top of it. Other times she would stop me to try and give me advice on household type of things, like what I could cook for my husband or how to clean my own oven. Now, unfortunately, some of our windows are parallel to each other, and a few times I honestly felt like I caught somebody watching. The blinds would always be closed, so I couldn't see who was doing it, but I assumed that between her and her husband, it was probably her. But anyways, I was never doing anything weird, but things always felt so strange. Fast forward and everything escalated when she recently showed up and rang my doorbell and knocked on my door angrily on top of that. I answered the door, and she immediately launched into telling me off for exposing myself and being indecent in my room by changing with the curtains drawn open, because apparently her husband saw everything. I asked her when this happened because I was always aware of that stuff, if not just straight up paranoid. Well, she didn't want to specify, and she didn't want to talk in general. She just wanted to be exacerbated at me. I didn't even get a word in, and she had a full-blown rant and then just started storming away. Now, of course, I thought of a million responses to yell back after the fact, but in the moment, nothing really came out. I was just so shocked. I think I yelled after her and said something like, "Yeah, screw you, you're being weird for lying." And trust me, I never talk like this, so I don't know where that came from, but it made my husband laugh. I was just so frazzled by the accusation that I blurted out. He then told me just to ignore her. He said if she shows up at the door again, he will be the one to step out and talk to her. I tried to go back to a day where I might have changed my clothing in the open like that, and I honestly couldn't think of anything. Well, just like clockwork, she showed up again, and my husband was the one to answer the door. She was probably not expecting him, and her stupid face looked like it was malfunctioning for a second while she rearranged her expression. She asked him if I had mentioned my transgression to him, and she basically made it seem like I was putting on a show for her husband and she had caught me in some kind of way. Well, my husband didn't give her the reaction she wanted because he told her off. She then switched up to saying she was just expressing her concern for his sake, and he told her this conversation is over and she is not welcome showing up at our door anymore. Well, fast forward, and a few days ago in the morning, she ambushed me outside while I was getting my mail. It was still dark, and she suddenly appeared behind me and started yelling. I get startled easily, and I almost had a heart attack. I dropped all my stuff, including my coffee mug with my very hot latte in it, and I think I blacked out or went autopilot or something like that because I involuntarily screamed, and I don't remember doing much else. My husband is currently away for work and won't be back until next week, but her husband heard and came rushing outside. But his presence was not reassuring. It just added to the feeling of being ambushed. He then started touching my shoulder and asking if I was okay, and like doing these swinging motions all over my body to get the coffee off. And it honestly freaked me out even more. I then backed away and I said, "Don't touch me." And I don't think I even registered what she yelled at me about. I left the mug and the mess out there, and I went inside and I called my husband. I could see them at the end of our drive, talking or arguing or something like that, and they stayed there for a while, occasionally glancing towards our front door. I thought about calling the police, and now I regret that I didn't. My husband wants to talk to them when he gets back, but I'm wondering if there is a better course of action here. But anyways, I just wanted to share this story about these crazies who have somehow sucked me into the middle of their sinking marriage, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, this really is insane behavior, because this lady clearly has it out for you. Like, let's look at the facts real quick. She's obviously flirting with your husband, and she's getting all buddy-buddy with him in some kind of like weird, creepy way. Like, just look at the first interaction she had with him. She was touching his arm and joking with him. Meanwhile, she's looking at you as if you're like the spawn of Satan. But it's the fact that she tried to spread some false lie about you and try to turn your husband against you as if you're undressing in the window on purpose, for me, is like the nail in the coffin for this lady. There is literally no good excuse for that kind of behavior, and the fact that she tried that in the first place speaks volumes about the type of person that she is. But I know if I was in your shoes and this lady ambushed me out when I was getting the mail, I absolutely would have called the police, especially after her husband basically put his hands on you. Like, that is creepy and that is not okay. So hopefully all of this gets resolved and these people leave you alone, because her behavior is not only incredibly creepy, but it's also something that you and your husband absolutely do not deserve. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.